Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk is live and direct on a Wednesday afternoon on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online worldwide at 580WIBW.com, and available to watch on our video stream on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and Facebook page, WIBW News. So glad you're with us for a Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski in the box with you. Spencer Dupuis will be along in a bit. We got 3 jam-packed hours of sports talk today, including lots of Super Bowl discussion as we look ahead towards next Sunday's Super Bowl 59 between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles as the Eagles seek their second championship in franchise history. Super Bowl championship, I should note, while the Chiefs play for their third in a row, an unprecedented feat in the Super Bowl era. We're going to talk a little bit about the fact that this is a rematch and comparing where the Chiefs and the Eagles enter next Sunday relative to what they looked like in 2022 when these two teams prepared to match up at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona in Super Bowl 57. Game, of course, won by the Chiefs 38-35. Where are the Chiefs better? And maybe where are they a little worse than they were 2 seasons ago? What about the Eagles? Where are they better? Where are they worse relative to their team of 2 years ago? And where do these Eagles rank against those Eagles and the other 3 teams that the Chiefs have prepared to play in a Super Bowl? We'll rank the Chiefs' Super Bowl opponents in the Mahomes era coming up a little bit later on in the show as well. So lots of Chiefs stuff to get to on the program today. Also in the 5 o'clock hour, we'll take a look at the guys the Chiefs brought in after the beginning of training camp and how vital so many of those guys have been to the Chiefs' success. That it is not just the stars that make this work. It's never just the stars that make this work. It's been savvy additions that some of them were always meant to be marginal additions. Some of them were meant to be impact additions and have been impactful. But it is eye-opening just how well the Chiefs were able to navigate the seas this season and add talent that helped them in a major way, not just a little bit either. So Brett Veach's done a fabulous job with this roster, and we'll sort of underline that a little bit later on in the show today. We'll also talk some college hoops. KU won last night. As long as you have no follow-up questions, that wouldn't be necessarily a surprise to anyone. After all, they were, 13-point favorites against UCF last night?
At some places, it closed as low as 11.5.
Well, they won by 4 and had to sweat it the whole way, but made their free throws down the stretch. The end-game execution was improved from the Houston game.
That is true.
Step in the right direction.
That is true.
But in these last couple of weeks of Jayhawk basketball, a couple of their most maligned players have proven that they are, in fact, very influential to the success of this basketball team. Their absence is conspicuous, and Dajuan Harris was the latest Jayhawk to be conspicuous in his absence last night, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, where I don't know that I've seen a more disjointed, discombobulated performance by a Bill Self team in recent memory. We'll get into that a little bit. We were kind of hoping we could just kind of glide over a routine KU victory, but once I heard Dajuan Harris wasn't going to suit up, I thought, that's interesting. And then when they were down 9, because everybody for UCF was shooting the crap out of the ball from 3 last night, I thought, oh boy, we may have to tear up the rundown, maybe lead an hour, lead the show if KU is going to lose back-to-back home games for the first time since the George H.W. Bush administration. Thankfully, that particular fate was avoided.
Thankfully.
1989, last time they lost 2 straight home games.
Yeah, H.W. had only been in office for a matter of weeks, I think.
Yeah. Most things with KU that are like eye-popping in terms of the things they've been able to accomplish in league play or at Allen Fieldhouse, most of those things date back to like the 90s. And the way I know that is because every time I've looked for a stat, wait a minute, when's the last time something like this happened to Kansas? Usually the answer is the year after the national title year when Larry Brown left and the NCAA hit Kansas with a bunch of sanctions.
Yes. Generally correct. You mean KU was worse after Danny Manning left? I can't believe it.
Yeah, that little slice, a little window of time. That's when all the most recent bad stuff happened to Kansas basketball. So we'll get to some KU hoops. We'll also get to some K-State hoops because they're back in action tonight at Bramlage Coliseum, taking on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. It is a 7:00 tip-off tonight. Pre-game coverage of that game starting at 6:00 right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. And we'll ask Tim Fitzgerald what he thinks about the recent improved play, if not all-around improved results for the K-State basketball team. Coming off of a win, of course, trying for back-to-back wins in Big 12 play for the first time this season. And they are substantial favorites tonight. Not as heavy a favorite as KU was last night, but a 7.5-point favorite at Prairie Band Sportsbook. The
Sizable.
Wildcats against the Cowboys. And Bart Torvik agrees with that number. That's the number he's landed on as well for tonight's game. Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com will join us at the bottom of the 4:00 hour for the Wildcat Wrap-Up, which we do every Wednesday on the program as well. Plus, all the things you've come to know and love from a Wednesday edition of the program. We'll do 580 Sports Talk headlines at the 5:00 hour. We got What Is Wrong With You coming up. It's our last day of What Is Wrong With You for January. We'll crown a champion for the week today. Tomorrow, the January semifinals, and then the day following, we will have our January champion crowned. On Friday, final day of January, we will crown our first monthly champion of the year for What Is Wrong With You. We'll do a little one gotta go later on this hour as well. That is all still to come on the show today. We would love to hear from you on 580 Sports Talk today. You can text the program. Text line is open. 785-272-9429 is the number. 785-272-9429. You can also get into the chat room on our YouTube stream. If you're watching on YouTube, again, the channel is 580 Sports Talk. There's a live chat feature on the web browser and on the mobile app version of YouTube, and you can jump on in, interact with us, interact with your fellow listeners in the chat throughout the program today. Again, the channel is 580 Sports Talk. Subscribe to the channel today and get us closer to our stretch goal of 800 subscribers. When we get there, Brendan and I are going to arm wrestle. So
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah,
personally,
I'm looking forward to it too. I've been doing a lot of training, getting a lot of reps in.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I'm picking up my large son.
You lifting? Yeah.
Yes, I'm lifting my child. Yes, lifting him up out of the crib, lifting him up off of the changing mat, lifting him up off of the floor when he tries to turn the corner and leave my sight from the living room, which he is doing a lot more often these days. We're coming up on 8 months for Ash, and last night he was trying to get himself up on his knees to move around, which, I mean, the Army crawl is one thing, but the more mobility, while they still have that tendency to want to put everything in their mouth, the more terrifying things get. So that's the current state of play at Lucero Manor, trying to keep a handle on the little guy. This has been 580 Dad Talk. Anyhow, let's get into some football, shall we? Let's talk a little football today. Chiefs and Eagles for the second time in 3 years, these two teams playing in the Super Bowl. And later on, we'll talk about how we would rank the quality of opponent, the danger of the opponent faced by the Chiefs in each of their 5 Super Bowls they've played in the last 6 seasons. But I guess as a precursor to that, which of the Eagles teams coming into the game, setting aside for a moment, if we can, the relative quality and the circumstances under which the Chiefs entered Super Bowl 57 and now enter Super Bowl 59. So in a vacuum, which of these Eagles teams feels more dangerous, feels better to you going into the Super Bowl? Want to hear from you on that. 785-272-9429, the text line, and of course in the YouTube live chat. But Brendan, what say you? Which of those two Eagles teams felt the most dangerous?
I think it's, I'm going to go with this year because I think the equalizer, or the the thing that sets the Eagles above is the run game, the offensive line paired with Saquon Barkley. Remember what the biggest worry was in the 22 Super Bowls? That would be Super Bowl 57. Do you remember what the big bad wolf for the Eagles was in that game?
The defensive line.
Defensive line. If I remember correctly, they had the record or finished second in NFL history in sacks in a single season since they became an official stat.
I think they had the record at the time, yeah.
Yeah, so that was, whoa. And this Chiefs offensive line, Orlando Brown, is he going to be able to hold up? Chiefs did just fine. I don't believe the Eagles had a single sack in that game. It had something only like 7 pressures in the entire game. So that was the big worry. And their defensive line is good again. But right now, in terms of danger, defenses, when they have quote unquote explosive plays, a lot of times it's because the offense screwed up. And that can be forced by the defense, but it's not as predictable or not as, much of an independent variable as an offensive explosive play can be. I mean, you hand off to Saquon Barkley, you get a good block, guard tackle left side. Suddenly you're looking at 20 yards, you're chasing the dude down. So against Barkley in this offense, you're talking about a 60-yard touchdown run because that's just what they do. They live on those explosive plays more than I think the team back in 22 did. So I would say this team because I think they have the ability to blow up a little bit more in a positive way for them than that other Eagles team did. And they've still, again, got the receivers who can make big plays, the tight end who can make big plays. Hurts on designed runs can be really, really dangerous, which is why your more athletic linebackers, Leo Chanel, again, are going to be really important in a game like this. So I would say not that the other team was not formidable, but I think this team is a little more dangerous because I think they have a little more control over the things that they are dangerous with.
Would you believe that the Eagles had better offensive numbers in 2022 than they did in 2024?
I would, because I don't think their quarterback has gotten any better since then.
Yeah, fair enough. Just the basic numbers. The 2022 Eagles were third in the NFL in total offense and scoring offense. Third in points per game, third in yards per game. They were eighth in scoring defense and second in total defense, which is, again, scoring defense and yards allowed per game. This year's Eagles, 7th in the NFL in scoring offense and 8th in total offense, but 2nd in scoring defense and 1st in total defense. They bet top total defense in the NFL this year out of 32 teams. Now, so if you look at it that way, you'd say, okay, well, maybe there's not too much difference between the two, just like if you wanted to weight offense and defense. If there's been a step back offensively for this team, there's been a corresponding step forward on the defensive side. I think they're better in the secondary this year than they were in 2022. And I don't think they were bad in the secondary in 2022 by any means. I mean, they had C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a free safety. You had Darius Slay and James Bradbury on the corners. They had a very defined weakness at a safety spot that year named Marcus Epps. And the Chiefs pushed on that bruise on the opening drive of the game when Mahomes threw the touchdown pass to Kelsey, because that was Epps on Kelsey one-on-one. But they had a defined weakness in the secondary that maybe this team doesn't quite have. Still got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, safety. Reed Blankenship's played good football at the other safety. And their corners, Darius Slay has not been maybe as productive this year, but Cooper DeJean's played good football, and Quinyon Mitchell is a star. Like an absolute stud in his rookie season. Now, if you want to point to youth and say that this is an untested secondary in big games, a lot of these guys have played in big games. That's certainly some truth to that. But I actually think they're better in the secondary. What I don't think is that they have enough or have as much of the pass rushing depth that the Eagles had back in 2022. The Eagles had 4 guys with double-digit sacks that season.
Hassan Reddick was great.
Yeah, Reddick was the star. He had 16 sacks. But Josh Sweat, Javon Hargrave, and Brandon Graham all had 11 sacks. And Fletcher Cox had 7 sacks.
As a defensive tackle.
Yeah. Essentially. This year, Sweat led the Eagles in sacks with 8. So this is not a team, this is not to say that their defensive line is not still good. Jalen Carter is great. Nolan Smith is certainly capable. they've got some guys. Jordan Davis is a big body in the middle, more of a run stuffer, but a good player.
Yeah, useful.
Really good player in his role. But there's certainly not the feeling that, oh, man, these guys are just going to come at Mahomes in waves. These guys are just going to – that was the fear in 2022. Mm-hmm. They finished regular season with 69 sacks. They just 41 this year. So there is not, at least to me, the feeling like, oh, boy, the front five for the Chiefs is in for a long day, which I think is probably good because I think if the Chiefs are worse anywhere than they were 2 years ago, it might be at offensive tackle with Joe Thuney playing out of position on one side and Juwan Taylor on the other.
Agreed.
I don't think that's as good a pair of bookends as Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley 2 years ago.
That's hard to say because Wiley, Joe Thuney, without question, is a better football player than Andrew Wiley. But Joe Thuney is also a guard who is playing tackle. And I thought there were some moments against Buffalo where that looked like a guard who was kicked out to tackle against the team that was desperate and good in Buffalo. And now I don't think that means Thuney is bad by any means, but I can see your argument. Absolutely. Without question. I think one thing that is worth bringing up, though, regarding the Eagles and, maybe a little modicum of surprise that their offensive scoring numbers are down a little bit. Truly a little bit relative to 2 years ago, and their defensive scoring totals are improved slightly. You always need context. It's one of the few things that NFL stats lack relative to baseball. That's why we have to do, I've got some success rate and EPA numbers in front of me, but, and those are daunting. Like, whoa, that's a lot of math and decimal places. I don't know if I like those stats, but NFL games, you need to add context because yards can mean anything. Points can mean anything. The Eagles this year, their average drive on offense is lasting 13 seconds longer than it did in 2022. You know why? They've run the ball almost 100 times more this year than they did 2 years ago. So longer drives mean what? Fewer possessions. Fewer possessions generally correlates to fewer points. So they're giving up fewer points in the game, but their opponents don't have as many chances to go score.
And we talked about that in relation to the Chiefs earlier this season. There have been low possession games. So the Chiefs' raw defensive numbers looked really good, even when some of the analytics weren't as optimistic about the way that this Chiefs defense was performing, particularly like mid-season, late October through November, when the Chiefs had that bit of a bumpy stretch after their loss to the Bills.
Yep.
Because the analytics weren't as fond of this Chiefs defense as the raw numbers. And yes, some of that is because the raw numbers for the Chiefs were propped up by the fact that they're only facing, 8 drives a game compared to like 10, 11, 12 opportunities for the other team a game.
And then when the other team knows they're only going to get 8 or 9 possessions instead of 10 or 11, you got to take more risks, right? And that's when you have turnovers. And in the second half of the year, what have the Chiefs been better at doing than they have been in the last 3 seasons? Turning the ball over, taking the ball away. So those things are all interconnected. That's the exact kind of context I'm talking about.
So, and that's another way to frame the Chiefs offensively, why this year they're 16th in the league in yards in total offense and 15th in scoring offense. But again, they've also had fewer opportunities with the football, fewer possessions with which to score. Now, does that fit your eye test maybe a little bit with this Chiefs offense saying, oh yeah, they're just not as explosive as the team that was number 1 in the league in both of those things back in 2022? Yeah, sure. But I don't think there's been that much of a step back. I mean, keep in mind in 2022, that was not a Tyreek Hill team. That was a team where Juju Smith-Schuster was the leading wide receiver. Like, man for man, do you feel like you've got a lesser version of Kelly? Game is better or worse than it was going into Super Bowl 57 with rookie Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and those guys. But I think that that's an interesting way to frame it, that maybe this Eagles defense, even though the raw numbers are telling you, oh man, this is a defense that's leveled up, the reality of the situation might just be that they're playing shorter games, essentially. They're playing shorter games
because they can lean on Barkley in the run game.
Yes, and that has been so pivotal for them throughout the year, and I think it's going to be pivotal for the Chiefs when we get to 2 Sundays from today to not allow the Eagles to do that by any means necessary. We're going to take a quick break here on 580 Sports Talk. Want to hear from you. Where do you think the Chiefs are better than they were 2 years ago when they played the Eagles? Where do you think they're not as good? What do you think will define this matchup? Text us 785-272-9429. You can hit us up in the live chat on our YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, the dialogue about the Chiefs on a national level, just try to tune it out because it's getting dumber by the day. We'll tell you the latest stupid thing to emanate from the steaming pile of mainstream sports media. On the other side of this timeout, we are just getting started on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Just getting underway on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. So glad you're with us here on the Sports Voice of Kansas.
Before we get to some nonsense, because this is nonsense we're about to get to, I wanted to really quickly revisit a topic we talked about yesterday. Is this the best version of Patrick Mahomes this year versus 22? And I think, you and I are on different. We had a very respectful debate about this yesterday.
Yeah.
But I think it also kind of illustrates the greatness of the quarterback that he has been, in a pretty short amount of time, been able to change his game a lot from gunslinger, huck it, chuck it, to now just the war machine quarterback who just is brutally efficient all the time. Do you know who the third leading receiver for the Chiefs was in Super Bowl 57?
The third leading receiver for the Chiefs.
I will take your answer either in terms of receptions or yards.
Okay.
Kelsey was one, or I'm sorry, Juju was one in receptions. Kelsey was one in yards. And then each was second, alternating categories. Who was their third leading receiver?
2022.
And this is just in the Super Bowl.
Just in the Super Bowl. Was it Jet McKinnon?
Jerick McKinnon caught 3 balls for 15 yards, and he was the Chiefs' third leading receiver in terms of receptions. In terms of yardage, Justin Watson caught 2 for 18. They won the Super Bowl and put up 38 points. Now, granted, the defense scored 7. Still, they won a Super Bowl and put up 31 points of offense, and their third leading receiver was a third down back.
And Mahomes was on one leg.
And Mahomes was on a bad leg. Like, that to me is, that year will always be more impressive even than his first MVP in 18, which was like truly earth-shattering stuff that the offense looked that good. But like they completely changed the entire offense, and he was throwing to people who 12-year-olds think played in the NBA 30 years ago, like plumbers and mailmen. Right. Like that's actually who Mahomes is throwing to. Nothing but respect to Justin Watson. By all accounts, great teammate, nice fourth receiver, dog. And come on.
And those guys were beat up too. Remember how many of them had to come out of
the
AFC Championship game? I was going back and watching some old championship game highlights for research, for doing the show, and then because of my own curiosity. I was watching highlights from that 2022 AFC Championship game. Do you remember Marcus Kemp caught a fourth quarter pass in that game?
No.
Yeah, because that was who was left. They were down to MVS.
Oh, you
Justin
know what?
Watson,
I do. Because I do remember
Marcus
coming
Kemp.
onto this show and being like, hey, Marcus Kemp.
Yeah, like that's who they had. Tony got banged up in that game.
Yeah.
Juju got banged up in that game.
Well, Tony, I mean.
Well, yeah, that's a perpetual state of being banged up for Kadarius Toney. Of course, both guys would play, outsized roles in the Super Bowl. At least certainly Tony did. But like they went through a lot. That team went through a lot. And then they were down 10 at halftime of the Super Bowl.
And won
anyway.
Just absolutely ridiculous. Dude, like the Chiefs led the NFL in drop back success rate by a lot. That's, you cut it pretty much in half on every play, how far you need to go for a first down, and then getting the first down. They over 54% for the year. And Mahomes won the MVP, rightfully so, but that's insane.
When you go back and you watch, I watched 2022 championship game highlights. I watched 2020 championship game highlights. So I was the one they beat the Bills.
Yes.
Because we were talking yesterday, I don't really remember much from that game. I remembered McCole Hardman fumbling a punt and the Chiefs going down big or 2 scores early and then being a steamroller the rest of the game, generally speaking. I also remember Josh Allen not being very good. But
he was bad.
Go back and watch the highlights of that game relative to the highlights of, let's be honest, the post-Tyreek Hill era. And it really does feel like you're watching the Chiefs offense on 1.5 speed when you watch the highlights of Tyreek Hill, younger Kelsey, and that version of Mahomes just letting it rip down the field. It is a different game.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And oh my God, young Tyreek Hill. Oh my God.
Here's a fun discussion for the off. Put a pin in this for pre-free agency, pre-draft, open Wednesday afternoon. Are the Chiefs different now because of choice or necessity?
Yes and yes, because they chose to trade Tyreek Hill.
They did, they could have made a bigger splash in free agency at receiver, for example.
Yeah, they didn't choose for Travis Kelce to be visited by Father Time this season. Nobody chooses that.
Funny enough, how much of this current form of the Chiefs offense is because Sky Moore sucks? Seriously, like, did Sky Moore unintentionally, by sucking, completely change how the Chiefs operate? Because I will listen to that argument, and I might frankly make that argument. He was this top 60 pick.
Yeah.
And he's been horrible, save for one play in the Super Bowl. And like now the Chiefs, instead of having second-round wide receiver who, like, hey, he's going to be our next number 1, number 2 guy going, for the next 4 or 5, maybe 8 years if he gets a second contract, to like, yeah, we're just going to throw for 7 yards through the air on every single play, and you can't stop us.
Well, I think that is going to look different in 2025, because in a perfect world, you will have second-year Xavier Worthy and a healthy third-year Rashee Rice.
Yeah, I sort of forget about Rashee Rice because, in fairness to the argument I was just about to make, we're probably talking about a different-looking team if Rice is playing. Like, yes. I think you're still looking at the same principles.
Rice is going to lead the league in receiving this year, man. He was nuclear hot to start the season.
Travis Kelce taught him how to be Kelce with all the routes and just how to be open, which nobody has ever mastered quite to the degree that Travis Kelce has at that position.
I hope the recovery goes smoothly, because that's got a chance to be a really special player,
yes.
Rashee Rice. And honestly, the Chiefs should get an extension done. Like, if they feel like he's going to tamp down his off-field knucklehead tendencies enough to be reliable, they should do an extension this offseason with Rashee Rice. They should bet on him.
They can't.
Because he's hurt.
Well, no, you have to wait 3 years.
You have to wait 3 years. Yeah, you're right. They should start those talks.
But to your point still stands, though, because 2 points here. The year after an ACL is usually
down year.
Courtland Sutton is back to being very good. But Courtland Sutton's first year back after he tore his ACL in Denver was like, okay, so you're going to go to the UFL. All right.
He was lousy. Yeah,
but he has emerged. If you even by like December next year start to see what Rashee Rice was becoming again, even if he struggles at the beginning, get it done, because he'll be back. I believe that for Rashee Rice. Get it done at that point. I totally agree with you.
This is high-minded Chiefs conversation we do on 580 Sports Talk.
That's right.
They're out of stuff to say about the Chiefs on the big networks, and it shows every time you turn on the television to ESPN or I'll ask this. Does anybody know anyone who watches any of the shows on FS1? Like, FS1 has this day-long lineup of sports talk, and I don't know a soul that's like, yo, did you see what they were saying on Speak?
Yo, you check out the new Craig Carton, Mark Schlereth, Danny Parkins show? I'd rather be dead.
Like,
every one of those dudes is insufferable.
Nick Wright is an evangelist for Mahomes and the Chiefs in general, but, like, he has to exit the FS1, like, atmosphere to deliver, to evangelize,
proselytize,
yes, to the greater public. Like, I hear Nick Wright's takes when he goes on the Dan Patrick show, like he did yesterday. I do not hear Nick Wright's takes on his own show.
No,
like, people are not circulating speak for yourself clips on the internet. It's just not a thing that happens.
Well, I don't know. People are circulating Emmanuel Acho takes these days. Maybe not for the reason he would like.
No, yeah, certainly not for the reason he would like. But anyway, the latest thing that I saw float down my timeline, social media timeline, like a stinky turd in a toilet, which is what this is. Mad Dog Russo was on First Take this morning. And he says there's no way the Chiefs are going to go down as the greatest dynasty ever. And he makes 3 arguments why this is the case. Number 1, he's bored of the Chiefs. He's chiefed out, his words. Number 2.
So he gets to decide that then?
Yeah,
because he's bored?
Number 2, they don't have as many Hall of Famers as the 60s Packers or the 70s Steelers, who each had 9 or 10 Hall of Famers. Now, I didn't go back and do the math on whether or not that is true, but how big was the league in the 1960s, Brendan? How many teams were in the league
talking like
in the 1960s?
Was it 12 at the time?
When the Chiefs entered, in the NFL, there were, I believe, 16 teams. Because when the NFL and the AFL merged in 1970, it became a 26-team league.
Yeah.
Where we got 32 now. So, like, again, the Steelers in the 70s, 26-team league. Talent's a little more evenly dispersed. And then, in the same breath in which he refers to Travis Kelce and Chris Jones as surefire Hall of Famers, Russo says the Chiefs will never be the greatest dynasty because they are too reliant on Patrick Mahomes. With those other teams, it was about their defense and some of their other players too. With this team, it's just about the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's just very stupid. First of all, right off the rip, I'll give you 4 Hall of Famers with 2 others that I think are solid maybes now and could get to guaranteed territory. Mahomes, yes. Kelsey, yes. Chris Jones, yes. Andy Reid, yes.
I'm going to say Joe Tooney is
he was in has a decent shot at getting there group.
Uh-huh.
And I think Trent McDuffie's a top 2 cornerback in the NFL. You do that long enough, you're going to be in 2. So he's already been an All-Pro. I would put him in that list.
Early yet, but he's on a trajectory that could have him in that conversation.
So
also, like, if you want to go back to when this all began, Tyreek Hill is going to the Hall of Fame.
Correct.
It may take him a while, but
yeah,
that's a Hall of Fame career.
Yes, correct.
Tyrann Mathieu going to have an argument.
He's been an All-Pro a lot.
Yes.
Maybe more than he deserved, but he has been an All-Pro a lot.
But he is going to have an argument. Texter from 785 points out Creed Humphrey is on.
Yeah, no, I think Creed is a great pick too.
Trajectory. Yeah, I mean, if the first line on his CV when he retires is best center in the NFL for a decade, yeah, he probably is going to get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I just don't understand why. And things like this are a good reason for me to be able to get some perspective and realize that not everyone who is a football fan or a sports fan is the kind of sports fan that I am. Many sports fans in the world would never listen to 580 Sports Talk. Like, oh, when do the Chiefs play this weekend? Oh, what do you mean there's a week off before the Super Bowl? Okay, like that's the majority. That's not me. I don't understand those people. People are like, oh, I might miss the game this weekend. Oh, well. Like, no, I'm rearranging every plan. Like, I'm changing my wife's birthday to make sure that I can watch a game. Like, sorry, honey. Like, Packers play at 3:30. That's me. Most sports fans are not that. Now, granted, most are also not going to watch this ridiculous morning ESPN and FS1 programming. But, like, this is catering to such a bottom feeder group of, like, fandom that I guess that's why you're able to produce it every single day and at that level. Like, I would never want to listen to, well, I'm bored, so they can't be the greatest. Like, to me, that is so intellectually dishonest and insulting. Like, I seek out, like, oh, I want to listen to podcasts hosted by guys who used to work in the NFL who are going to talk about all sorts of stats you've never heard of. Like, that's what I care about. This allows me to step back and realize I am in the minority. Most people do not feel that way. And if you actually are enjoying, like, oh, man, you hear what Mad Dog said today? More power to you. You and I are just very different people.
Yes.
Because, no, I guarantee you, I did not hear what Mad Dog had to say this morning in the year 2025.
But that's how ESPN promotes their content anymore. Did you hear what this guy said? And that's
I just don't get
got me.
I don't get it.
And I listened to Chris Russo's voice for 2 minutes, so you all didn't have to. Clayton in the YouTube comments throws out Harrison Butker as another possible future Hall of Famer.
It's hard as a kicker, man.
They don't put a lot of kickers in, but like best clutch kicker of a generation for a team that won a bunch of Super Bowls, like it's going to be a case.
Yeah,
going to be a case.
I feel like Vinatieri is going to get in.
Yes.
Tucker needs to retire this offseason. Justin Tucker does to help his case, to be frank with you. But like Vinatieri is so central to the mystique of the first Patriots dynasty and then won another Super Bowl with another team that like, I don't know that Butker has the same thing. Like Butker had the game winning kick in Super Bowl 57, for example, but like, he didn't have the kick in the blizzard, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because for kickers specifically, it's so narrative driven.
Yeah. So the kickers that are in the Hall of Fame, there are 4 place kickers in the Hall of Fame. 2 of them played other positions, Lou Groza and George Blanda. 1 is John Stenerud. 1 is Morton Anderson. So you either have to have played another position or have been Nordic descent as a kicker to make the Hall of Fame. We'll take a timeout, talk a little KU hoops on the other side of this break on 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk. Gang's all here. Dan, Brendan, Spencer. KU 91, UCF 87 last night at Allen Fieldhouse. KU narrowly avoids losing back-to-back home games for the first time since 1989. A lot to dislike from that game.
Yes. All right, let's start with the good. Zeke Mayo, very good.
Home Zeke Mayo. Zeke Mayo in Lawrence, Wooden Award candidate.
I love Zeke Mayo, and I wish he would get a fifth year because 1 year is just not enough of Zeke Mayo with KU. KU closed the game.
Yes, they did. Made their free throws down the stretch.
Yes.
I think they were 7 of 8 in the line the last 2 minutes.
Got a little bit lucky. There was no foul on KJ Adams on the defensive end after he missed a floater on the offensive end, but he got the ball, got fouled, hit free throws. KU closed the game.
There's a positive right there. He played.
He played. Yes, that is good.
He's back. He was not supposed to be back till next week.
He started the second half. You knew he was going to play a ton yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the bad. Hunter Dickinson went 7 of 17.
How does that ever happen for somebody who's 7'2"?
I wish
to go
I knew.
7 of 17 from the field.
Just floater after floater that grazed the front of the rim. It was
That
nasty.
That stat line is brought to you by Quilted Northern.
Yeah, it was very soft. AJ Storr can't play. Like, and I'm not saying like, wow, this dude can't play. He's a jabroni. No, like if you're Bill Self, you cannot play him. That was so lazy and just so ugly, hideously ugly last night. You cannot put him on the floor unless you're out of bodies at this point. Also, last night, great example of why Rylan Griffin's not in the trust tree. Because I've been pounding the table. Play Rylan Griffin more. He's the one who will unlock you. He looked terrible last night. Bad shot-making decision or shot-taking decisions. Defense was sloppy. Just a bad game for Griffin after he was really good against Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just was ugly. Clear example of why Dajuan Harris matters. And yes, he probably shouldn't shoot as often as he has this year. He's still feeling pressure to create offensively because guys like Storr and Griffin haven't taken off. But he's setting everything up offensively. He's setting everything up defensively. It was just a mess yesterday, and you can't really afford that. And I'm not saying he's worth, what would it be, 47 points, the difference in KU's 2 wins over UCF. But he orchestrates so much. He keeps everything calm, cool, collected. You got to have him out there. I hope he's able to go Saturday. Sounds like it's really up in the air if he's going to be able to or not. But that's your difference in the game. Griffin's got to be heading the game a little bit more. Hunter's got to be stronger with it. And I really just don't want to see AJ Storr. Nothing personal, but if he announced he was transferring today, I'd help him pack a bag.
I thought there was something encouraging about the way that KU could get whatever they wanted on offense against UCF in the second half, even without Dajuan Harris on the floor. But I do think that in his absence and in KJ Adams' absence the 3 games prior, you saw how important those guys are to the team. I have understood and even been sympathetic to some of the arguments that people make about why these players don't help KU, what their weaknesses keep KU from being able to do when they're on the floor. But these have always been guys whose strengths outweigh the weaknesses. Doesn't mean the weaknesses aren't real. It means the strengths outweigh the weaknesses with KJ Adams and with Dajuan Harris. And if you didn't think that KU, if you thought that KU could function just fine without Dajuan Harris, no, they cannot, particularly on that defensive end. And hopefully he is back this weekend. Because they need him. Somebody had to organize them defensively. Like that was so appalling. Some of the errors, mental and physical, they made on the defensive end, just so uncharacteristic of KU teams.
Flory was really good again.
Yes, he was. Even in a 3 big lineup, it still worked.
That was.
I'm really excited
right?
for what he's going to be in a couple of years.
Yes, I agree. Well, honestly, maybe just next year.
Yeah, he might be an NBA player in a couple of years. Yeah.
Thank God he's not on any mock draft boards because yikes. Would not want. I want him back badly.
The Johnny Furphy.
Right. That was a statement by Bill Self to his team, right? Playing 3 bigs.
I think so.
There's no way that was part of the game plan.
Like, no, we're just going to play the guys that are playing the hardest and that are my best guys.
And that's fine. Like, if that's it, you still won. Fine. I don't ever want to see that again. Oh, my Lord. No, thank you.
Even Bill Self said it. That was a survival kind of win. And KU got it. And they needed it to avoid some ignominious history about losing consecutive home games. We'll take a break, come back with one gotta go to wrap up the 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. It's one gotta go time to wrap up this 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, what do you got for us today?
All right, we're going back to the well with a classic one gotta go question for you. We're going to go cities the Chiefs have gone to play in the Super Bowl during the Patrick Mahomes era. So we've got Miami, Tampa, Phoenix area, and Las Vegas so far. Those are the first four. We're going to New Orleans this year.
Right.
We're going to New Orleans. All right. I'm that one's not included.
Yes.
We're going to New Orleans.
Going to eat my weight in beignets.
Of
Yes.
those other four, though, one that you say, nah, I'll pass. One's got to go.
Vegas. That's the easiest answer possible. Vegas is hot Milwaukee.
You'd rather go to Tampa than Vegas?
I've been to Tampa. Tampa's fine.
Oh, man.
Vegas is a cesspool.
I've been to Vegas.
The only reason you go to Vegas is if you used to be, I'm going to go gamble. Well, now you can gamble anywhere. You gamble on your phone.
Vegas hasn't fallen apart, though.
I would rather go to Vegas than to Tampa.
Yeah, I've been to Tampa. I've done that airport to stadium at Raymond James. It is not fun.
There's
nothing there besides car dealerships. If have you been by Raymond James? If you keep going down the main road, it's just luxury car dealerships.
Huh?
There's no and then there's a minor league baseball stadium behind it.
At least I can go to the beach. No,
That's true.
The baseball writer Joe Sheehan says Las Vegas is just hot Milwaukee, and in terms of how big it is, and the kind of sports market that it is, and yeah, I think I would agree with that. But no, the draw that used to be there for Vegas, it's Sin City. You could go gamble, and they go 30 minutes up the road to Mayetta and go to Prairie Band if I want to pull the slot or watch a game and get a bet down. I don't need Vegas anymore. Vegas has outlived its usefulness.
It's still around though.
That depends what you're looking for. To gamble? No. If you're a real, you want to go pay for sex? Yeah. Not for me. I wouldn't do that.
I'm out of the game. I'm out of the game on
yeah,
that.
I'm out of that.
So again, no appeal. Vegas holds zero appeal for me. There's nothing for me there. Nothing.
Counterpoint. My one counterpoint for you. I ate chicken and waffles that literally had flakes of gold on it when I was there. Is that probably sinful? Yes. Is it one of the best meals I've ever eaten? Also, yes.
It's not as good as the grouper I had in Madeira Beach near Tampa last time I was
I do like
there.
grouper.
Let me just say that. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, we're going to rank the Super Bowl opponents for the Chiefs over the last 5 Super Bowls. What is wrong with you? And Tim Fitzgerald next on 580 Sports Talk. Hour number 2 on a Wednesday on 580 Sports Talk. Greetings and salutations. Thanks for being here on a pleasant late January afternoon in the capital city on the sports voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our video stream. You can catch us on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. You can catch us on Facebook as well at WIBW News. Trios here for the next hour. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dorzinski, and Spencer Dupuis. Brendan's got Washburn Basketball Coaches Show tonight from Skinny Sports Bar and Grill. Big week, 2 games at home for the Bods, Thursday night and Saturday afternoon. So Brendan will be previewing those with the head coaches of Ichabod Basketball.
Yeah, it should be a fun show this evening. Saturday, by the way, the women's game is the TV game of the week in the MIAA. So it's going to be on television in Kansas City, Channel 38, The Spot.
There you go.
Home of the MIAA game of the week. No, it should be a lot of fun. Men's game tomorrow is going to be a doozy. Washburn's up 3 games in the MIAA race. I mean, clearly the best team in the country and the best team in the conference. But you take down Fort Hays State again, you're up 4 games as we enter exit January, enter February. It's going to be hard to make up that ground. But this Washburn team's incredible, guys. Like if you haven't gone out to see them yet, get out and see them because they're that good. And the women are playing really good ball too. And I'm excited. You were there, Dan, when Washburn played at Fort Hays State at the start of December, almost 2 full months ago now. And Washburn didn't have its best player.
No.
You play anyone without your best player, you're going to struggle.
It was
obviously.
a rough afternoon for sure.
And when your best player is a center and the other 2 teams' 2 best players are both forwards and play near the basket, it's going to be a challenge, and it was. And Coach Westling and I talked about that earlier today. But so I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see Bari, who's playing phenomenally recently, up against Fort Hays State coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, we got Washburn Coaches Show tonight over on our sister station, home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9.
Is there is that Skinny's?
It is at Skinny's.
Is there a Wednesday special?
There's a special every night of the week.
Yeah, what's the Wednesday
So glad
special?
you asked, Spencer.
I actually don't recall. I mean, I know it because it's literally my voice on our commercials that says what the special is. But I haven't done a Wednesday coaches show in months. Like seriously, I don't think since November have I done a Wednesday coaches show. So I'm rusty on my Wednesday Skinnies game. I'll find out tonight though, because your boys got to eat. So I will be finding out here in about 2 hours what that special is.
Can order food online. Skinny's website.
Skinny's is up on it. And you should because it's delicious.
Yeah.
By the way,
good food over Skinny's for sure.
Yeah. So Coach Show tonight
curds.
at 6. Cheeseburger. Very good. That's my
I
wife's
said cheese
go-to.
curds.
Those
are also good.
Jalapeno cubes. My wife likes cheeseburgers. That's her go-to. The games are tomorrow against Fort Hays State, 5:30 and 7:30, 5:15 pregame. I did want to address this. Dan, your Vegas take, not popular among the masses.
Is that right?
From the YouTube comments, Clayton says, Vegas is a great time. It's way more than just gambling. I agree with Brendan. To hell with Tampa. Says he went to Vegas for a music festival, in fact, back in October.
Sure.
Our pal, the Jayhawker, he says on YouTube, comparing Las Vegas to any casinos around us is like comparing Class A ball to the majors.
Look, Vegas has been in the casino business for a very long time. It's what they do. Like, I've been there. I've been down the strip. Like, I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced it. It's not something I ever need to do again.
I will say I had more fun, and I was only there for 2 days, 1 night. Okay. Mm-hmm. Or really one day, 1 night. I had more fun in the casinos than I expected. I only like to really do one kind. I like to gamble on sports. I'm not really a gambler other than that. Like I wasn't at the blackjack tables or anything like that. I also don't have money. So, that makes things difficult. I had more fun than I expected. I had a really good couple of meals, dinner and breakfast. It was cool to see the Bellagio fountains and stuff. I didn't go to a show, but I don't like that kind of thing. Like I'm not here to see Cirque. Like that.
Danny Gans.
I got a gigantic bag of M&Ms at the M&M store.
So,
which is very much up my alley.
So this is the last time I was in Vegas. My last time I was in Vegas story. I was traveling as the play-by-play voice of the Wichita B-52s of the Professional Arena Soccer League. Mm-hmm. This would have been the winter 2013, 2014. We went to Vegas to play the B-52s were playing the Las Vegas. I think they were the Outlaws or something like that. Anyway, their home arena, Orleans Arena, was double booked. They had an RV show there that weekend. So we played at like their training facility, which is just an indoor soccer field at like a fitness center.
Mhm.
There were maybe 60 people in the crowd. There was not a broadcast position. I stood on a box, like a plyometric box. I stood on a box behind the penalty box area, and I broadcast this entire game. We got our clocks cleaned. After the game, the owner of the Las Vegas franchise gave us all complimentary passes to a strip club that he owned. We did not go, much to at the time a very single Dan Lucero's disappointment. We did not go to the Gentleman's Club. We went to the Cheesecake Factory after the game instead, and
sounds great,
and ate dinner. And then afterwards, we went down the strip. So there were two vehicles, and I was in the vehicle. We had two players on the team that were from Cuba. They had defected. Oh, not like to play indoor soccer, but they were playing indoor in the winter season. They played. They had teams in the USL. I think they were playing on in the summer. But anyway, they were on this team in Wichita. Two kids from Cuba. I think they were like in their early 20s, 21, 22. And I mean, it was very cool to see this garish, gaudy display that we are so familiar with. It is such a part of Americana, the Las Vegas Strip, all those neon lights, all those big buildings, all those marquees, to experience that through the eyes of somebody who was experiencing that for the first time, who had defected from Cuba. That was pretty cool.
Sure.
They were leaning out the window, taking pictures. Like it was pretty cool to see how much they enjoyed that part of it. And I played video poker, got $25 on a four of a kind, and bought a cheesesteak. That's my Vegas story.
I mean, that sounds pretty good. When we were leaving, we had to go catch a flight. My wife and I sat down. I played the Fortune Cup, the horse racing game, like, over and over, because I lied. I do like gambling on things other than sports. The ponies. Yeah. I do enjoy the ponies quite a bit.
The sport of kings.
And so you have a mechanical horse racing game in front of me that I can gamble on, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to enjoy some mechanical ponies. And it was fun. I mean, we didn't expect to win anything. We took out like $100 and played. Won 3 straight races on our way out of the casino. So we ended up breaking even for the weekend. And I said, my wife said, "Hey, you want to go again? You're winning." I'm like, nope, we're done. We've broken even thanks to these 3 wins. I am out. This is a win. Yeah. You come out even. That is absolutely a win.
Yeah,
so
100%.
I got the fun, and it cost me nothing. So we're good. Let's get the hell out of here.
I took my winnings from the cheapest video poker that you could possibly play at the. We were. Don't know if you know this. The budget for a professional indoor soccer team in 2013, that was not Bellagio money.
No. Clearly.
That was not the Palms or the Wynn money. We stayed at a joint called Arizona Charlie's. You could see the strip from there. You also had to pay for internet, like $9.95 a day. That was wild.
Wow.
Anyway, so yes, at the video poker machines at Arizona Charlie's, I had a 4 of a kind. Wish I'd been playing the big machines. I would have made a lot more money. Anyhow, share your Vegas stories with us if you're so
pretty
inclined,
cheap a night. I just looked it up. $56 a night.
I bet. Wonder if they're still making you pay for Wi-Fi. Share your Vegas stories or whatever stories or comments you'd like to share with us. Text line 785-272-9429. You can, of course, jump in the live chat on YouTube if you are watching the live stream on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Super Bowl 59 is the 5th Super Bowl the Chiefs have played in a 6-year span. That is a record that has never been done in NFL history before, among the many other things this Chiefs team has accomplished and has a chance to accomplish that have never been accomplished in the Super Bowl era. 5 Super Bowls in 6 years. Super Bowl 54, they played the 49ers. Super Bowl 55, it was the Buccaneers. Super Bowl 57, it was the Eagles. Super Bowl 58, it was 49ers again. And this year, it'll be the Eagles again. Which of those 5 teams do you think was the toughest opponent on paper? And again, let's put this in a vacuum here, because I think the most confident I was in the Chiefs winning a Super Bowl was probably going into the 2020 game. And I just forgot to account for the fact that Mike Remmers was playing.
Yeah, that was a blind spot for yours truly as well. That was tough.
So setting aside the version of the Chiefs that was playing in each Super Bowl, just looking at the opponents, which of these 5 teams, 2019 49ers, the 2020 Buccaneers, the 2022 Eagles, the 2023 49ers, and the 2024 Eagles, was the best. Let me give you the tail of the tape on all of them. The 2019 49ers went 13-3. They were second in the league in scoring offense, fourth in total offense. They were second in the league in, they were eighth in the league in scoring defense and second in the league in total defense. 2020 Buccaneers went 11-5, third in scoring offense, eighth in scoring defense, seventh in total offense, sixth in total defense. 2022 Eagles went 14-3. They were third in scoring offense, eighth in scoring defense, third in total offense, and second in total defense. Last year's 49ers went 12-5. They were third in both scoring offense and scoring defense. They were third. Total offense, they were second. Total defense, they were eighth. This year's Eagles, 14-3, seventh in the league in scoring offense, second in scoring defense, eighth in the league in total offense, first in the league in total defense. That's the tail of the tape on all five of these. Which team, Canis Masmacho here, which team was the toughest opponent on paper for the Chiefs?
I am going to go with what you guys just said. I think the 2020 Bucks were. It was at their home stadium. That doesn't matter really, but like it was Tom Brady. Like this was either the passing of the torch game or it was the I'm going to go to another team and win without Bill game. And to me, that's what it was. And that whole team was a pretty darn good team put together.
So it's interesting because I was thinking about this when, Dan, you were breaking it all down. Like, with the benefit of retrospect, Tom Brady, well above average offensive line.
Gronk
back and not like his 2011 self, but still good. Mike Evans, probably a Hall of Famer. Chris Godwin, really good.
A solid tandem of backs and Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. Like, not world-beating, but those guys were solid.
Fournette
dependable.
was playing well at the time.
Playoff Lenny.
The defensive line was really good. Their secondary was really good. I thought for a long time that Levante David is one of the most underrated players in the NFL. Like
he's been underrated so long, I think that he's properly rated now.
You're probably
that's
Antonio
fair, Winfield too.
What was that?
Antonio Winfield Jr. was a rookie.
He had a pick in that game.
Winfield.
Really, really great player. And so to Tyreek Hill, and that was also very funny.
Ndamukong Suh.
We can say it's funny now, yes.
With the ability to reflect on it, there's multiple Hall of Famers on that team. They were really, really, really good. But I vividly remember at the time feeling like, are we getting the Bucs that have played the last 3 weeks, or are we getting the Bucs that played the first 14 weeks of the season where things were not really all hunky-dory? Let's not forget that there was a lot of narrative that year. Like, hey, does Tom Brady actually believe in anything Bruce Arians is telling him? Like, does Bruce Arians actually have any control over this team? Is Todd Bowles actually good? No, wrong. He's never been good. But that's beside the point. Like, there was a lot of stank on that Buccaneers team that I think has kind of been flushed away because they ended up winning the Super Bowl.
They were 7-5 after the Chiefs beat them in Tampa Bay week 12 of that season. Remember the Chiefs put up 543 yards of offense against them. Remember Carlton Davis trying to cover Tyreek Hill one-on-one?
I do.
Like,
it was very funny.
Yeah, Carlton Davis, that was a put the fries in the bag, buddy moment for him. In that game. And then, of course,
I think that game changed his whole career because he's been pretty good since.
No, that's absolutely true. They had their bye late, week 13. They won their last 4 regular season games fairly handily, though they weren't playing real good teams. They escaped the football team in round 1 of the playoffs. They beat them by 8. They forced 4 turnovers in a 10-point win over the Saints on the road in the divisional round. And then they beat Green Bay. I did not think that Brady had the arm to go into Lambeau when it was cold and beat Rodgers. And then the Packers just forgot to play deep coverage at the end of the first half, and the game turned right there. It was
Scotty Miller on Kevin King.
But that felt like a team going into that game. It felt like we were talking more about how did the Buccaneers keep winning? How did those teams not beat Tampa Bay? This feels like a very flawed team. The fact that they dominated. They didn't beat the Chiefs. They whipped them for 60 minutes. They did. Up front, they dominated that football game. And the Chiefs made a ton of mistakes. And Mike Remmers won his second career Super Bowl least valuable player award. And it ended up being a beatdown. And then, because it was a beatdown, you look back and say, oh, that must have been inevitable. It was anything but with that Buccaneer team. They probably rank, for me, I don't know if I could put them at the bottom of the list because they by far had the best quarterback. But I would put
they won.
And they won, yeah. But I'm trying to divorce that particular context.
Sure.
I would rank the 2019 49ers last. I would rank Tampa Bay ahead of them. I would rank these Eagles third, the 49ers of last year second, and I think the 2022 Eagles were the best team the Chiefs had played. And I think that because they had the single most dominant unit that the Chiefs
went up against.
It was their pass rush. Like,
yeah.
The Buccaneers pass rush ended up being more dominant in their game. But like you look at the Buccaneers guys on paper and what they accomplished going into Super Bowl 55 and the Eagles guys on paper and what they accomplished going into Super Bowl 57, I don't think it's much of a comparison.
I, going into that game, that Super Bowl, was prepared to pick Philadelphia to win it until, I believe, 5:55 on Friday before the game, when we get to the final word and made our final judgments. I believe I waited until that long. I was telling people, this is the honest truth. I was telling my friends and people who asked me, like, who do you think is going to win? Do you think the Chiefs will get it done? I was telling people for 2 weeks, I think it'll be the Eagles. And then I flipped at the very last moment, and I put a handsome investment on the Chiefs, and I was rewarded for my belief in Kansas City at the last moment. So I think I kind of had to pick the Eagles. That team was really good. And let's not forget, as good as that defensive line was, their offensive line, just like this year, argument for being the best in all of football.
Yes.
Top two. Those. Do you remember having these conversations? It was number one defensive line versus number two offensive line, and like vice versa, like number two unit versus number two unit, number one versus number one. Like that game, the battle in the trenches was some legendary stuff. It was awesome. And it ended up being an awesome game. Yeah, great quarter. I mean, it was all-time Super Bowl. I probably agree with you that I would put those Eagles up at the top. I'm tempted to say I'd put these Eagles this year number 2.
Okay.
I think I would go Eagles of 22 first, Eagles of 24 second, probably the second 49ers team. Like, I supported Jimmy G vocally. That's because Jimmy G grew up about half an hour from where I grew up.
Okay.
And I don't think he was ever quite as bad.
Homies helping homies.
Yeah, I don't think he was ever quite as bad as he was made out to be. I don't think he was quite beautiful garbage, or the very sexy garbage, I believe is the line. But again, with the benefit of hindsight and not having the emotion of the moment and the emotion of me trying to make a claim when I was 24 years old, I think I'd put that team last. I think I'd put that first 49ers team last. And I'd put the last year's 49ers third, the Bucs fourth.
Okay, so our only difference of opinion is on this year's Eagles and the 2023 49ers.
Yeah.
So you think this Eagles team is a little bit more dangerous than last year's 49ers team?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. It's close, though. It's really
there's a lot of similarities there.
You've even got the best running back in football each given season on the other side, which is kind of funny.
You've got a lot of similarities there. I think, my argument for the 49ers would be you feel better about their head coach.
But then it turned out he didn't know the rules.
Yeah, that is true. And you felt better. I would say you felt better about 2023 Purdy than 2024 Hurts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
So, that's another way to look at that.
It's tough though, because the 49ers, it was Shanahan, and it was Debo was still around, and Ayuk, I believe Ayuk played in that first game, unless he hadn't been drafted yet. But you had Nick Bosa, you had Fred Warner.
Ayuk wasn't on that team.
Okay, so he was a year away.
Yeah, their Emmanuel Sanders was their number 2 wide receiver.
Who Jimmy Garoppolo famously
overthrew
on what probably would have won that game for San Francisco late in the fourth quarter.
It would have given them the lead. That's all I'm willing to say about
fair.
that. A lot of people say, "Oh, that was the game." I say, "Yeah, Mahomes would have got the ball back."
Fair enough. No, I will not dispute that at all. But they added McCaffrey. They had Ayuk, and the best version we've gotten so far of Brandon Ayuk, and they had the best version, the better version, the more experienced version of Fred Warner. On paper, they had Drake Greenlaw, who's really, really good. Now, he got injured in the game itself, but on paper, going into it, they had him. So I think they changed enough. Whereas the Eagles are so similar, they just upgraded at running back and don't have Hassan Reddick anymore.
And have
Jalen Carter.
Don't have Jason Kelce.
Don't have Jason Kelce. That's a good point.
That's kind of important. Like Cam Jurgens is really good.
I mean,
is he Hall of Fame good though?
Hear me out here. Had turnovers not happened for the Commanders in that game, I think the center position would have come into play a lot more. Like the fact that
Like we'd be talking about it more now.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'll
Like,
listen
I
to
don't
that.
think it would have been a blowout had they not turned it over as many times as they did. And I think it'd be a big concern going into the game.
No, I think it is a big concern for the Eagles going into Super Bowl 59. I do. There aren't participation reports today, not real participation reports from the Eagles and Chiefs because there were no practice held today. So any participation reports, we'll get to them in headlines, are just an estimation. But Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson would not have practiced today had the Eagles had a workout. Had this been a normal game week, they would have held both of those.
Hello, Nick Gates.
Who is the best interior defensive lineman the Eagles have faced this year?
Best interior defensive lineman?
Did Vita Vea play week 4? Might be him.
Yeah.
By the way, were you aware? I did not know this. I had not heard this yet. This is the first week the Eagles have off since week 5. Because they didn't get the bye in the NFC.
Yeah.
And their bye was week 5.
No, that's true.
They've played a lot of football a lot of weeks in a row.
They have.
I mean, the Chiefs were close. The Chiefs were week 6, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but the Chiefs also got the bye going into the postseason.
Yeah, so they've had an additional
And they
bye.
didn't play their starters against Denver.
That's a good point. They didn't play anyone in week 18. Yeah, I don't remember if Vea played in that game. But, I mean, like Cam Hayward, really, really, really good player. But he's also old. Like, I don't know that he was.
Jonathan Allen last week.
Jonathan Allen's good.
I think he's even better now than he was before his injury.
Well, none of these dudes are Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day.
That's the point I'm trying to get to. Like, I love Kenny Clark in Green Bay. Kenny Clark ain't Chris Jones. Like that's the point. Grady Jarrett, good player, had a nice bounce back year. He ain't Chris Jones.
Yeah,
That
Vita
is the
Vea
thing
had
I'm
a
trying to
sack
bring
in
up.
that game.
What was that?
Vita Vea did have a sack.
Okay,
in
so
that
he
game.
did play in that game. Okay, significant to note. And Vea is a different player than Chris Jones is. They have different styles, different strategies, everything, different skill sets. But you've now got a good center, but not a Hall of Fame center going up against Chris Jones, who I imagine is going to rush the interior as much as he has all year because, I don't know, do you want to match him up on Jordan Mailata? You want to match him up on Lane Johnson? I don't know that I would. If I have an advantage rushing over the center, Chris Jones, you're playing the zero technique today, brother. You're going helmet to helmet over this dude.
No, it's certainly an option.
Well, I think if they have to play their third string, which is essentially their second string, it's not going to be good. Nick Gates sucks.
Yeah, they are banged up in the middle.
No,
That's
Nick
true.
Gates is.
Yeah,
he's been inactive.
Yeah, he's their third string center. Like,
But he's been
That would
inactive.
be the guy, and yeah, he hasn't played a whole lot of football.
He used to play on the Commanders. He was horrible.
Okay, yeah.
That's why.
I wondered why.
I knew that there was something.
Yeah.
here,
I wondered why you.
He
were,
also caused a bunch of fights for no reason.
I wonder why you were Nick Gates insider all of a sudden. Let's take a timeout. Come back with what is wrong with you at 580 Sports Talk. Two news stories competing on What Is Wrong With You for our final weekly champion of January. We've got our semifinals Thursday, and on the final day of January, we'll crown a January What Is Wrong With You champion. Our current weekly winner, Sister Act a Fool, the two sexagenarian sisters in Florida who got in a brawl at their dad's funeral over one of their daughters being snubbed in the eulogy. That's our current weekly winner. For my story, which I've titled, Sir, This is an Arby's. The Memphis Police Department is searching for a customer at a Cordova Arby's who allegedly assaulted an employee last week because he was upset about the food. On January 20th, around 9:30 p.m., an employee at the restaurant advised police a man came in upset over his food order. He allegedly became irate and began cursing at the employee and calling her racial slurs. Before you ask, yes, he is. The man then went behind the counter and pushed the victim to the ground, and the suspect left the restaurant in a white truck. They are still looking for his whereabouts. It ain't that serious, man. Just like, I don't know, ask him to put some horsey sauce in the bag.
Nothing good ever happens at Arby's.
Not at 9:30 p.m. I can tell you that right now.
Never.
Arby's hits just fine at like 12:30, 5:30, 7 o'clock. I'll even make an allowance. You get a beef and cheddar at 7 o'clock. Sometimes that goes down great. 9:30, hey, you're really pushing it. You're pushing
the bowl of your toilet.
You're pushing the boundaries of when it is okay to do the old RB. Go ahead, Spencer, with your story.
All right, let's go to Florida. Just after midnight on Monday, a trooper spotted a red pickup truck speeding down US 19, swerving all over the roadway. After the trooper activated their lights and sirens on their patrol car, the suspect, identified as 36-year-old Dylan Devereaux, fled. According to FHP, he even dropped off a passenger, made a U-turn, and continued to flee. The video shows the moments after Devereaux continued fleeing when he crashed into a tree at the intersection of Jurad and Gerbert Drive. He took off on foot and was tased by a trooper. As he was being placed into handcuffs, the suspect began fighting the trooper on the road and was subsequently tased again. According to the arrest report, he pushed the trooper and began to run toward his home on Jurad Road with one handcuff on. He then disappeared into nearby woodline. After another trooper and his canine arrived on the scene, sweeping the backyard of the home in the wooded area inside the Newport Richie home. His girlfriend, 31-year-old Megan Hamilton, told officers she did not want them to come in her home because she had drugs inside and didn't want to go to jail.
Oh, dear.
She also told them he was not inside, but later said she was worried that he would reach what would happen if they entered the home. He was arrested wearing a lanyard with a pouch containing unknown white pill substance and meth. He told troopers that he disposed of the handcuffs somewhere while running between the houses. According to FHP, he's charged with
a lot of things,
and his girlfriend's charged with resisting an officer. He was also wearing a Dalmatian.
Yeah, that's the punchline here. Is he's wearing a Dalmatian onesie.
Yes.
That is
like great value Matthew Pancake here.
It must have given him superpowers. He was tased twice and still managed to flee with half the handcuffs on.
You know what else might have given him superpowers?
And then took them off.
All that mess.
The mess.
Yeah.
Really good. This one wins today. Our Dalmatian
nice
on the run. Yeah.
Got him.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a stretch. Does that beat the Sister Act?
No, man, they got no. These were women in their 60s getting in a brawl at their dad's funeral.
Yeah, that's still pretty wild. Great story today, Spencer, but the Sister Act of Fool moves on to our January semifinals, which we'll do tomorrow. Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com will join us next for the Wildcat Wrap-Up on We welcome in on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline the great Tim Fitzgerald, publisher at GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Fitz and his crew cover the cats like nobody else, and you should consider being a VIP subscriber at 24/7 Sports today to read all of their VIP insight. You can also find Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Catch him on the Wildcat Wrap-Up. We do it every Wednesday here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, is it too simplistic to say about this Kansas State basketball team that they kind of go as Doug McDaniel goes, and if he's good, they're good, and if he's not, they're not?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I think there is something to be said about it, and not just when he's good, when he's balanced in what he's doing. He's both scoring and distributing, and he's defending. I guess there's 3 points of that. I think they're really good. Yeah, you're right. I would not have probably pegged him as the cornerstone piece. I thought he was an important part as the point guard naturally, but I thought it'd be Coleman Hawkins or even someone else. But here we are, and I think you're right. I think if we look back at this season, the moment Jerome Tang admitted defeat in his head-to-head battle of wills with Doug, I think might have been a turning point for this team because they played better basketball in general since then.
K-State picked up a win on Saturday at Bramlage Coliseum, and I have to imagine that was such a weight lifted off of the players, off of head coach Jerome Tang. Did you sense that in hearing them talk post-game and watching them in the waning moments of that game where, look, they were up 24 at half, and West Virginia played better in the second half, but they never got it to within single digits. They never really made anybody sweat in that second half. Did you sense relief from that team, maybe more so than any other emotion?
Still making them work and just be good enough on both ends of the floor to, not let that slip away more, I think is a positive sign too. Let's be blunt. Tonight against Oklahoma State's a really important test. This is not a great team from Oklahoma State. Kansas State should have won in Stillwater. They played like crap and didn't. And they have to get this one to get 2 in a row.
Speaking of, I wanted to ask you about David Gasson in particular, because I think that he has outperformed any reasonable expectation of what his career at Kansas State might look like. And I think there are a lot of people that deserve credit for that. David himself, obviously, but everybody's had a hand in his development. Jerome Tang and his staff, some of the staffs of the international teams that he's been able to play for, representing his country. But we've talked all season. It sort of made this season a little bit of an indictment of the idea of building a team through the transfer portal, or at least exclusively through the transfer portal. And here's a guy in David Gasson who kind of represents for this K-State team, not just maybe their best and certainly their most consistent performer, but also the guy for whom things seem to mean the most and a transfer portal success story. It's an interesting dichotomy with David Gasson this year, but he just, what does his success say to you about, just broadly speaking, the direction of K-State, the ability to develop players, and the necessity sometimes of taking a chance on a young guy in the transfer portal and seeing if the change of scenery brings him happiness in his new home?
Yeah. And, I think we saw Desi Sills come in for one season after, being his third stop and finally found the success that, he thought he could have. But I think Jerome Tang's now realized that what's made David good is the third year. And, he wasn't nearly this good in season one. He wasn't last year. Granted, he was injured a little bit. But trying to get a guy now out of the portal that'll be with you that long seems to be kind of the change of direction. I don't think we're going to see them totally ignore high-level players that they might be able to bring in. But I think we're going to see a great deal of balance now. I admire Jerome Tang for just flat out saying that did not work. It didn't work, and we're gonna have to go back to something that's more proven. Because in general, in the college basketball industry, people thought it would work, and it hasn't. And not just K-State. I mean, I think that's what people sometimes they get to staring at this one situation. This has been replicated in failure in a number of places across college basketball. K-State is kind of just a shining example of it. So now I think we're going to see the balance between getting some high school recruits in to develop. Where would they be if they were able to develop their 3 high school kids they signed initially? So now, like Castano, they're staring at Castillo like, we got to keep him because he's a foundational guy. And having 5 or 6 of those guys instead of 1 or 2 means you've got a culture in place. And a culture that then the other guys know the new guys can be adopting that culture instead of creating a culture. You just can't create a culture with a bunch of pieces with reliable success, and that's been proven.
Tim Fitzgerald is our guest. He covers all things K-State and is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. If you're not a 24/7 VIP subscriber, you are missing out on all the best insight into what is going on with K-State athletics. You can find Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz, and this is the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. Hey, real quick, Fitz, it's been a few weeks since I've talked to you. How you doing, buddy?
Who are you? I don't even know this voice anymore.
I know. It's been too long. I'm like a brand new man.
God, Lord. Okay. Well, you can say you've been out covering basketball or whatever. We know it's been a suspension. Go ahead with your question.
That's true. I've been very, very naughty.
Had to wrap his knuckles a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I did want to bring up David Castillo, who you just mentioned. There's kind of this foundational piece. That's the word. Foundational piece for this program going forward. Of the guys like that, and he's the only freshman, but some of the guys who were brought in, maybe they were projects. Abaye Fall, Moby Ikegwaruka. I knew I would get it eventually. Who is the guy from that, future group, that foundational group, who you've been the most impressed with here in their young seasons?
I see what they see in Moby. Boy, he's raw and green, but that athleticism and his effort, they're both off the charts. So I think it's cool they're trying to play him 5-6 minutes a game. He's going maybe 10, but let's just kind of get him up to snuff here on what it's like to play and what he should and shouldn't do in a game. I think he could be really good. I'm now kind of interested in the Hostin situation because he'll be back, and we're seeing Onienso play too, and he's got another year. So it seems like they're trying to retain that. But look, we haven't seen Bayfall. We know that Buddy Rich is buried in the doghouse, and I don't think there's any recovering at this point. Taj Manning has been loyal to the program, but he just doesn't seem to have the ability to make that breakthrough. So I think you got to look at Castillo for that, but I think Moby's been an interesting piece to go with it. I would hope that maybe Bayfall is someone they feel like they could develop, but we're seeing no signs of them having any interest in playing him either.
The Moby Ikegwaruka situation is so interesting because at first it's like, okay, what are we doing with this guy? But you're right. I mean, that athleticism is the kind of thing you can't teach, and you either got it or you don't. Is that the kind of player that when you're talking about recruiting, 3 or 4 freshmen every year out of high school and having those guys who grow and build through the program, would you like to see a spot reserved for the athletic project? That's more of something that comes up. Because they can mold him into what they want him to be. Would you like to see K-State, reserve a spot for a guy like that yearly and just take the big swing?
Yeah, I do. Let's roll it back a number of years. When Marcus Foster came in, had a huge splash as a freshman. And meanwhile, you have Leslie Wandu on the team, who is obviously a physical freak, but not nearly the same player. Who played in the NBA? I mean, that's by the time he was a senior, Wesley Wandu was just an impossible match. He could score offensively, not fluidly. You know, he was kind of struggled offensively. Defensively, though, he was 6'7", 6'6", long. He could defend inside, outside. And it was so athletic. So, yeah, I guess I'm all in on that. And I think coaches sometimes make the mistake, and we see this more often in football and basketball, thinking, okay, you're 16, 17 years old. I can work with you now. Instead of saying, what are you going to be like when you're 19 or 20? And that's the difference in recruiting at a Kansas State in football, at least, than in Oklahoma. You have to be able to project. And I think some of that in basketball also is true. What are you going to be here in a few years? Oh, your dad's 6'10", you're only 6'6". Okay, David Robinson, maybe we will take a chance on you. We'll see how they balance it. They're going to have a tough time doing it right away, bringing in guys, because they got a late start on high school recruiting. They weren't going to do much of it. They were going to swing for the fences and get transfers, and they're out of that plan. After halfway through the season, they knew that was a wash now.
Couple more minutes with Tim Fitzgerald to go, powercat.com, and the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. We were talking the other day about the success recently recruiting in-state that Kansas has had on the gridiron. 7 of the top 11 prospects, I believe, at 24/7 Sports in the state of Kansas for the upcoming recruiting cycle are heading to Lawrence. This has been, of course, dominated in-state recruiting by K-State over the years. As you evaluate this, is this a one-year blip, or is there maybe some concern for K-State's long-term ability now to keep some of the best talent heading to Manhattan?
Well, I mean, you always want to protect it. But honestly, I think K-State is mostly focused on a few guys, J.J. Dunnigan, who is committed to KU, being one of them. And this is such a transition class. This is a unique situation with the probable house settlement setting in and having a revenue share with players. And how do you divvy that up? And that's still even in limbo with the Title IX ruling from the previous administration. So I don't know where this money's coming from. If it's straight NIL moves in-house next year with this money. I don't know if it's from that, and if it is, it's going to throw everything else out of whack. That you're going to have less to divvy up for other players. But if you're KU, you need to do something to change the storyline, to try to alter the direction of this river, because it's been flowing in one direction for a long time, and they're doing that. So I kind of look at this as Jerome Tang going into the transfer portal to try to close the gap on KU. It seemed to work, and then it didn't work, and I guess we really won't know if this has paid off in the long term by results. But also, I want to caution that when you're throwing numbers around for J.J. Dunnigan that we're hearing, and again, you don't know if these numbers are true. I think it's just trying to raise the bar for other programs. We've already seen him, get an offer from Ole Miss, and I think he'll visit there, even though he's committed. So you also got to be careful with something K-State basketball is going through. Everyone's going to list you, so you drive up the price.
Tim Fitzgerald covers K-State athletics for GoPowerCat.com. Become a VIP member over at 24/7 Sports today, and check out Fitz on the Wildcat Wrap-Up every Wednesday on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, always a pleasure. We'll do it again next week.
Okay, sir. Good to talk to you.
That is Tim Fitzgerald. We'll take a timeout, come back, wrap up this hour of 580 Sports Talk after this. Wrapping up this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Our thanks again to Tim Fitzgerald for joining us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, we'll have our headlines. Talk about how the Chiefs added to their roster midstream and how successful a lot of those additions were as the season went on. We'll preview some K-State hoops tonight. 7 o'clock tip, 6 o'clock pregame, so that starts right when we're done. Another CBS Sports Network game for K-State tonight against Oklahoma State at Bramlage Coliseum. Again, a 7 o'clock tip. You can hear it here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9.
Which would you rather have? A game that you have to stream online on an app that may or may not work, and if you have bad internet connection, almost certainly will not work, or you can watch it on the network that has by far the best presentation for college sports. Man, tough break getting this game on CBS Sportsnet instead of ESPN Plus.
I wish we had the time. The ESPN Plus broadcast of KU UCF was so bad. I don't know what Mark Neely was watching. It had to have been a different event.
I'm glad I don't have ESPN Plus at the moment.
Brendan's out of here for the Washburn Coaches Show. Brendan, we'll see you tomorrow. Brendan, Spencer and I have you the rest of the way for the final hour of 580 Sports Talk.
scattered rain and a rumble of thunder. Those chances will rise as we're heading through Thursday, lingering into early Thursday night. Our high mid-40s, some heavier rain. Late Thursday night and Friday morning, we're on the backside of the system, and there may be a little rain, so no mist. Clearing by Friday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Ramon from the Capital Federal Weather Center.
On air and online at 580wibw.com.
Let's get it. Third and final hour of this Wednesday edition of 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And a special welcome to those of you watching our video stream of the program. Our YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. Our Facebook page is WIBW News, and you can watch us make these sounds with our mouths throughout each and every 3-hour show. We got one more hour of the program today before we hand things off to K-State basketball. 7 o'clock tip tonight at the Octagon, K-State and Oklahoma State. We'll have more to say about that later on this hour. Pre-game coverage starting again when we're done, 6 o'clock here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. So we've got one more hour together, and it's just the two of us, myself and Spencer Dupuis, myself being Dan Lucero, by the way. Brendan Dworzinski is off to Skinny Sports Bar and Grill for tonight's Washburn Basketball Coaches Show. Ichabod men still unbeaten. That winning streak is at 19-0 for the Bods heading into this week's MIAA contest, both at Lee Arena tomorrow night against Fort Hays State and Saturday against Nebraska Kearney. Brendan will talk to their head coach, Brett Ballard, and also the head coach of the Washburn women, Laura Westling, as they look to start a new winning streak after their 3-game streak was snapped with a loss Saturday at Missouri Western. That show will air from 6 to 7 over on our sister station, your home, your exclusive home for the Washburn Ichabods, Country 106.9.
I'll be at the Ichabods game Saturday.
Oh, you're going to go take in some basketball. Have you been to Lee Arena yet at all?
I have been outside of Lee Arena at like 3 a.m. and at 2 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
Coming back from the trips.
Yeah, catching
the bus. But no,
Okay.
I've not been inside of Lee Arena until Saturday.
Well, that'll be fun. That'll be Washburn against UNK.
The number one Washburn Ichabods.
Yes, number one Washburn men, and taking on the Lopers of Nebraska Kearney. What do you know about Kearney, Nebraska, other than what I've told you? Which I don't know if I've told you anything.
You told me some stuff.
I did,
and that's about the only thing I know about Kearney, Nebraska. I thought it was Kearney, Nebraska.
Yeah, I have heard it mispronounced. I think when I first moved to Nebraska, it was Kearney for me. And then I was very quickly corrected. Every state has those places, right?
Yeah.
Like what's the place in Virginia that people mispronounce the most?
That's a great question. I can tell you West Virginia.
Yeah.
There's a town between the capital, Charleston, and Huntington where Marshall is.
Uh-huh.
It is a type of event. Looks like a type of event that happens along coastlines.
Okay.
There's a Carolina hockey team.
Hurricane.
It's Hurricane.
Hurricane.
Yes.
So you slur it almost.
Yes.
And don't put any emphasis on that last E. Kansas has a bunch of them. El Dorado, Salina.
Yeah.
The Murtazines Valley.
There's definitely a lot in like southern West Virginia, but I don't know any or southern Virginia. I don't know a lot of that.
Every state's got Arkansas City. I still screw that one up from time to time.
Wait, what?
Yeah, south of Wichita is Arkansas City, and the river is the Arkansas River. It looks like Arkansas. It's not.
Jeez.
Yeah, text from the 913 points out Arkansas and also El Dorado. You hear that one. Hear people get that one wrong quite a bit. But yeah, every state has those places. Kearney in Nebraska, definitely one of those. I worked there for 4 years, got a crash course. I think I had them all down by the time I left. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I think I was at least getting Steiner right. Looked like Steinauer's Steiner. Anyway, that's from another life. Coming up in this 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, we are going to talk about the preseason and midseason additions that the Chiefs made. The players that have jumped aboard midstream for these Chiefs and how important they have been.
I would say more of after the initial 53.
Sure. Yeah.
Because there are some guys early.
But yeah, like the initial 53 the Chiefs had their picture of.
Yes.
And how that has evolved as it's gone along and how vital some of those additions have been to the Chiefs. It blows my mind that we don't talk about Brett Veach and Andy Reid every year as Executive of the Year and Coach of the Year.
Well, Andy Reid's up for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, finally. It feels like he's never up for Coach of the Year.
And he probably won't win it.
You know how many times he's been AP Coach of the Year? Like that's the recognized the awards that the NFL recognizes as official are the Associated Press Awards.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times Andy Reid has been the AP NFL Coach of the Year?
Once, maybe?
Once.
Yeah.
2002. That's it. Now, he was Sporting News Coach of the Year 3 times, and he was Pro Football Weekly Coach of the Year only once. He's won the Maxwell Club Coach of the Year 4 times. I don't know what that is. But, yeah, the AP, the official Coach of the Year award, he's only ever won that one time. And I don't know if there's an Executive of the Year like there is for baseball. I think there is. This one's actually awarded by the PFWA, and Brad Holmes won it this year. Brad Holmes, general manager of the Detroit Lions, won it for the 2nd consecutive year. Do you know how many times Brett Veach has won the PFWA Executive of the Year?
Once.
Zero.
That's
Zero
disrespect.
times. Do you
That
know?
is disrespect.
Do you know who won Executive of the Year as the GM of the Chiefs? John Dorsey did in 2013, Andy Reid's first season. You know who else has an Executive of the Year award with the Chiefs? Scott Pioli. That name is mud in Kansas City, and he was the 2010 PFWA Executive of the Year. By the way, Scott Pioli, a 3-time winner of the PFWA Executive of the Year award. Him and Bill Polian, the only guys to win it. I'm sorry, Bill Polian won it 4 times. 5 times. Shoot, I got to learn to read. 5 times. Bill Polian, the greatest executive ever lived. Apparently. Him and Scott Pioli. Yeah, just carved them into the Mount Rushmore. Also, very funny note. You know who also has won the PFWA Executive of the Year one time? You're not ready for this. Jerry Jones.
Oh, did you see somebody asked him if he thought anytime soon would be time to step aside as the GM and hire?
I don't know why you would ask because you know the answer.
He said he's taking it to his deathbed.
I'll bet he is. Jerry Jones was the 2014 PFWA Executive of the Year.
Did they win a playoff game that year?
Did the Cowboys in
They might have won one
2014
playoff
win a
game.
playoff game? Yes.
They won one playoff.
They beat the Lions in the playoffs, and they lost to the Packers. The Des Cottick game.
Yeah.
That was probably the best Cowboy team of recent vintage, I would say. Of the last, is that the best one since the last time they won a Super Bowl? I think it probably was. Up there, for sure. Anyway. So yeah, Brett Veach never wins that award, and Andy Reid never wins Coach of the Year, and they should. And we'll give some more reasons why that should be the case. We'll also do a little bit of a preview of K-State basketball tonight as they take on Oklahoma State at Bramlage Coliseum. But we began with our 580 Sports Talk headlines, as we do every 5 o'clock hour here on the show. By the way, we mentioned the text line. If you would like to text the program today, we would love to hear from you. 785-272-9429 is the number. You can also jump in the live chat if you're watching on YouTube. The YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. There is a chat feature on both the web browser and the mobile app. You can post. You can interact with us. You can interact with fellow listeners throughout the program. Let's start our headlines with the estimated participation report, the first one for Super Bowl week. The Chiefs and Eagles did not practice today, but both teams submitted participation reports as is mandated by the league. So the reports are estimations as to what the status of all the players would be if indeed there had been a practice today. So you can take this, I don't necessarily think it's useless. If I thought it was worthless, I wouldn't mention it because I do think it does paint a very vivid picture of where both teams are heading into Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
But also, if teams were practicing, these things may look different. Anyway, the estimated participation report features 5 Kansas City Chiefs, all of them as full participants. You know about Patrick Mahomes' ankle, Jawan Taylor's knee, and Jalen Watts' ankle. They've been showing up on injury reports for a while now. Kareem Hunt and Brian Cook both popped up on the injury report with a quad injury, but both would have practiced in full, which is an indication that the Chiefs are not really concerned about those injuries and the availability of either Kareem Hunt or Brian Cook 2 Sundays from today.
To me, this report is essentially, hey, these are the guys that are getting treatment.
Yeah, essentially. Yes, this is because you are required to be honest about these things. Like you get fined, you get dock draft picks, like you can be punished.
I don't know if you've seen the chatter. You probably haven't. I think you've logged off of the cesspool that is X, but for
follow me on Blue Sky at Dan
yes. There's a thing going around about the Bills corner. Was a corner?
Christian Benford.
Yeah, that he was taken off the injury report, but he probably shouldn't have been.
Yeah, they tried to slip him on at the end of the week.
Yeah.
Man, I hope Christian Benford is doing okay
Me
today.
too.
That was
Scary.
honestly one of the scarier injuries. He did not look good when they don't typically cart people off the field who suffered concussions. Like, it doesn't usually look like that. Usually they're able to leave the field under their own power unless they've been needed to be immobilized. They had to take Christian Benford off on a cart, and it didn't look like his eyes were open.
And they had to buckle him into the cart.
Yeah, man, that was horrifying.
Yeah.
And if the Bills did rush him back in concussion protocol just to get him on the field for the AFC Championship game, then they should be punished for that. The league should absolutely investigate that. Anyway,
sorry,
neither here nor there. No, it's a good point to make, that you do have to be honest with these things. And so there's not nobody's fudging anything with these, even though they are just estimations. The Eagles list 10 players on their estimated participation report. 9 of them would have been DNPs. Now, some of these are rest. They would have rested Saquon Barkley today, given him a vet rest day. Same with A.J. Brown. Same with Dallas Goedert, who is dealing with a nagging ankle injury, but nothing significant. Those 3 players would have been DNPs with non-injury related decisions. They would have gotten vet rest. Here are players who would have not practiced for injury reasons today. Starting guard Landon Dickerson with a knee. Starting center Cam Jurgens with a back injury. If you saw the NFC Championship game, Jurgens didn't start, came in an emergency situation because Dickerson couldn't finish. Kenny Gainwell, backup running back, listed with a concussion and a knee injury. Defensive tackle Moro Ojomo with a shoulder injury. Wide receiver Devontae Smith with a hamstring would have been a DNP today. And reserve swing offensive lineman Brett Toth would have been a DNP with a knee. Wide receiver Britton Covey is currently on injured reserve. His 21-day window is open. He would have been limited today with a very funny typo on Chiefs.com, a connect injury. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it was knee or neck, but it came out as connect. Very funny. Anyway, that's the participation report estimated for Chiefs and Eagles. And again, long way between now and next Sunday, but you see that the Eagles are going to have to massage their injured guys a little bit more, and not in a literal and a figurative sense, I suppose, to make sure that they are ready and at full strength and the healthiest version of themselves that they can be for the Super Bowl, where the Chiefs have really nothing to worry about. And you'd much rather be in the Chiefs position than you would with the Eagles position. You'd much rather have the Chiefs participation report than the Eagles on this Wednesday before the Super Bowl. First headline, Spencer.
Yes, in the NFL, we were kind of awaiting to see, would there be another retread, or there's one more hiring to go in the NFL head coaching world. That is the Saints. They're going to retread, or they're going to get some young blood, some fresh blood. Looks like they're going to go in the direction of most likely fresh blood, because Mike McCarthy, the former Cowboys head coach, who was a free agent, is no longer planning to coach this year, which leaves Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore as the lead candidate for the New Orleans vacancy.
So
this sounds like McCarthy after the Packers.
Yeah, he did. He took time off and ended up coming back as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Look, we've been saying it now, not just this past season, but for a couple of years. The Saints are a mess. Short and long term, they are a mess. They are in a bad spot as an organization. They're talent deficient, and they're bumping up against the salary cap in a really restrictive way. It's not a real good job right now. So for a coach who's spoiled for choice, and like Mike McCarthy did a good enough job in Dallas overall, that I do think he'll get another opportunity to be a head coach. Kind of thought it was going to be in New Orleans, but I can't blame McCarthy for looking at that and saying, oh, brother, I don't want any part of this.
I mean, especially a guy where he is right now, like he wants to win another Super Bowl.
The reality of the situation for whoever the Saints hire is they are going to have to eat some losing early.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to get like a credible veteran coach to sign up for. And of course, kind of makes you feel bad for whichever young coach it is that takes the job, because a lot of times, you know, you go and you take a job where you're set up to fail and you don't get a second opportunity.
Yeah.
And this is a job that does feel a little bit like, I'm not going to say set up to fail, but they better be patient. Whoever takes this job, I hope that the Saints are patient with them and understand that first 2 years might look kind of bleak. I mean, the record might be like livable because you're in the NFC South. It's not a very good division, but you're going to have to eat some losing in the first year or two while we get our cap situation sorted out and go find a quarterback solution for the long term, because God knows it ain't on the current roster.
Nope.
It's not Derek Carr. The Spencer Rattler agenda, which our guy Brendan was trying to advance just a little bit at times during the season. The Spencer Rattler agenda is dead. I love Jake Haener and always will for his work as a late-night college football superstar at Fresno State, but that's not happening.
That's about it.
So, and those are the quarterbacks. They're not going to play Taysom Hill at quarterback. I mean, if they want to do that, they could have just kept Sean Payton as head coach, and Payton would have eventually given Taysom Hill the run. But no, they don't have their quarterback on the roster. That job is that job's not real good, and can certainly understand why Mike McCarthy would say thanks, but no thanks.
It's crazy. Their number 2 receiver, well, I guess number 3, Rashid Shaheed is number 2. Your number 3 receiver is MVS.
Yeah, MVS had a nice little late season renaissance there. He had 4 touchdowns in like a 2-week period. Well, yeah, 3-week period, he had 4 touchdowns. After that little burst of productivity, he had a game with 3 catches and 2 touchdowns. Then he had a long touchdown against Cleveland. Then he had a touchdown the next week against the Rams. And then the 4 games after that, he had a grand total of 9 catches. So, yeah, diminishing returns for sure.
Yeah,
for MVS, we'll always have the memories. Caught a touchdown in the 2022 AFC Championship game. Caught the ceiling pass on 3rd down in the 2023 championship game. Playoff MVS will live forever.
I can't believe Derek Carr's cap number next season.
It's like
$51.5 million.
It's like in scientific notation.
Taysom Hill's is $18 million.
Yeah, and he blew out his knee, didn't he?
Yeah, he's hurt, and he was listed as their like second or third string tight end. Like, come on.
We'll see how much
the only one that
next year
sounds respectable is the $20 million for Cam Jordan. Somewhat respectable.
Yeah, but even he, the father time is coming for Cam Jordan too, for sure. Sounds like it's going to be Kellen Moore for that gig.
Yeah,
that's pointing in that direction. Kellen Moore, of course, offensive coordinator for the Eagles. Saints have to wait to do the due diligence on him until Super Bowl week is over. Do kind of wonder if that's where the Saints were looking all along. Even though McCarthy became a candidate late because he became a free agent, essentially, you kind of wonder if the Saints felt like Kellen Moore was going to be their guy.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get a guy that wants to be a head coach, not a guy that's been a head coach.
And I like Kellen Moore, and I think he's pretty good at his job, and I hope he gets a grace period there in New Orleans. Because like I said, there's no fixing the talent deficiency, especially like you don't have Taysom Hill for most of next season, you would assume, coming off of a significant injury. They might move off of Allen Kamara because they got to clear some money somehow. Derek Carr is old and bad. It's not a good situation. It's not a good situation.
Do you know next season they're paying Marshawn Lattimore $31.6 million in dead cap?
That's a lot of dead cap.
Michael Thomas is 9.1 and Jameis Winston 7.3 dead cap.
That's wow. Okay. Yeah.
That is why they're in the situation they're in.
Yeah.
Also, all in this, shout out to Adam Peters for not having to take all that. Like, they're not taking that salary cap over from Marshawn Lattimore.
That's
he swindled that deal.
Yeah, man, he really did. Next headline for me, it's a slow news day in sports. I'm not going to hold you. We'll just do a couple more quick hitter headlines here. WNBA star Caitlin Clark has turned down the NBA's offer to participate in a special 3-point shooting challenge at the NBA's All-Star Weekend. Last year at the NBA All-Star Weekend, Steph Curry of the Warriors had a contest against Sabrina Ionescu of the New York Liberty, and they shot a three-point contest that was just kind of separate from the actual 3-point contest. And there have been some conversations about expanding that NBA versus WNBA 3-point challenge at the All-Star Weekend, because there is increasingly less buzz for the All-Star Weekend. Like, people are over the All-Star game. They changed format of the All-Star game. I don't know if people remember that they are doing that. They changed format of the All-Star game for this year. Still no buzz. The dunk contest is three jabronis you've never heard of and Mac McClung, who you've only heard of because they pluck him out of the G League to go do the dunk contest every year. So there's no buzz for that. The NBA is desperate for anything to give them buzz for the All-Star Weekend. And they said, Caitlin, please help us. Bring your clout. Bring your, what the kids call it, Riz. Bring your Riz. We need your clout. We need something to spice up All-Star Weekend. And Caitlin Clark,
she goes, no.
Correctly says, y'all need me. I don't need y'all. Which is a wild thing to say for the best women's basketball player to say to the men's basketball league. You need me. I don't need you. And she has said through her representation that she wants her first 3-point contest as a pro to come at the WNBA's All-Star Weekend, which will, of course, be in Indianapolis, where she plays her home games as a member of the Indiana Fever. So there is that headline. Also, this headline from the world of women's volleyball. If you follow college women's volleyball, this is a massive story. The head coach at Nebraska, John Cook, announcing his retirement after 25 seasons. He is the winningest Division I volleyball head coach in this century, won 722 games in 25 years, led Nebraska to 8 NCAA championship games and 12 Final Fours, winning 15 conference championships and producing 72 AVCA All-Americans. Nebraska has said that they will do a nationwide search to find his replacement. No, they won't. They are making one phone call to Danny Busboom Kelly, who is the head coach at Louisville, who went to the Final Four this last year and who played at Nebraska, and who has a stipulation in her contract that her buyout is waived if she leaves for employment at her undergraduate alma mater.
I love it.
Yeah.
That is the best stipulation in the contract.
I can break this contract whenever I want as long as it's for my alma mater.
Imagine negotiating that.
That's the kind of coach she is. That's how good she was there at Louisville. So that is big news. Obviously, Kansas's legendary coach Ray Bouchard stepped aside this offseason as well. So a lot of giants in college volleyball stepping aside and ending their head coaching careers this offseason. We'll take a break, wrap up headlines. When we come back, we're going to talk about midseason and under-the-radar newcomers that have really helped the Chiefs on their journey to Super Bowl 59. But first, want to tell you what's going on with my friends at Great Life. It's a new year. It's time to start on your fitness goals. It's never too late. I know you say New Year's resolution, I got to start on January 1st, or I got that first week, or I got that first month. Well, no, you can commit to a healthier lifestyle. You can commit to going to the gym. You can commit to getting on the treadmill or lifting weights or playing more golf anytime you want. And Great Life memberships help you have access to 8 outstanding fitness facilities with all kinds of great amenities. You can go to greatlifetopeka.com to learn about which facilities have which amenities. Of course, 5 great golf courses, too, that once the snow finally melts, and hopefully we're getting closer to it all being gone soon, they're going to open up back for play and be in great shape throughout the spring and the summer. Go to greatlifetopeka.com for more information. And if you are a current member and refer a friend to become a member, you and your friend will save up to 32% on your membership. greatlifetopeka.com. More 580 Sports Talk after this. An update to that last college volleyball headline before the break. Nebraska has announced Danny Bustrom Kelly as their new head coach. Took like 2 seconds.
I was going to say, this still took off, 5 hours today?
Yeah. It wasn't, they didn't have to bet. They didn't have to do much of an interview process there. Sometimes it is just that easy.
Well, I mean, she did put it as a stipulation in her last contract. So.
Right. Right. Dan and Spencer with you, 5:34 on this Wednesday afternoon edition of 580 Sports Talk. Glad you're with us. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching us on the YouTube live stream, 580 Sports Talk. Hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429, or jump in the YouTube chat if you're watching the video stream. Again, 580 Sports Talk is the name of the channel. Spencer, we were talking the other day about how the Chiefs roster has changed over the course of the year, and that they would probably not be here Super Bowl 59 if not for some important additions that became a part of this team after it felt like the 53-man roster was already kind of set in stone.
Yeah. So we obviously, it's called now, and it's more focused on as your initial 53 now.
Right.
I feel like that's how it's focused because teams make so many moves throughout the year.
On cut down day, yeah, they call it the initial 53, and then things evolve in a hurry.
Well, especially because sometimes there's people cut on other teams that you don't expect that, oh, maybe this guy He'll take a vet minimum deal. Come with us.
Do you remember some of these names from the initial 53-man roster of the Chiefs this year? Do you remember Cameron Thomas?
He was still on the roster.
Yeah, but he was on the initial 53.
Did he make it? Oh, they traded him just beforehand.
Yeah.
I have it listed on
Yeah,
not everyone has worked out.
They acquired him
right in that frame.
Yeah, in that time frame. Sky Moore was on the initial 53. Jared Wiley, where have you gone on the initial 53?
He was hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt.
Yeah.
So a lot can change. A lot can change from that Tuesday cut down day, get to the initial 53, and then what your roster ends up looking like by the end of the year. Anyway, continue.
And for this Chiefs team specifically, these guys they brought in, like I've joked that you look at a receiving core like Hollywood. I mean, when Hollywood's healthy, you look at the roster with the receiving core: Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster. You think like 2021.
Oh yeah,
like best top. Those are three of the top 25, 30 wide receivers in the league.
Imagine 2021 Mahomes throwing to those guys.
Yes. So then I was in my head, I'm like, after, we saw Samaje P. Ryan get the AFC title winning ceiling catch.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? And then Juju Smith-Schuster made a bunch of catches in the game, or especially early. And then
two big receptions. Yeah.
Kareem Hunt with that touchdown and just what he's done all year. It got to me thinking, I'm like, these guys, they weren't on this blueprint for what a Super Bowl team would have looked like in August. And they have come up big in big time situations. Kareem Hunt, obviously he took the load after Pacheco's injury, 7 regular season touchdowns, 2 100+ rushing yard games in the regular season. He's had 2 playoff touchdowns so far.
And he's been the guy now in the postseason. Like the running game identity of the Chiefs is now Kareem Hunt. And I don't know that anybody would have seen that coming for a guy who couldn't even get a sniff. They couldn't get an invite to camp.
Yeah.
He didn't go to anybody's camp after last season. And look, I'll be honest with you. He looked pretty cooked last year. He averaged 3 yards a carry for the Browns. Like, that's a terrible number for 135 touches for a running back in the modern era.
Yeah.
But, and not that his yards per attempt this year were any great shakes. They were 3.6. Like, he's not the guy he was when he rushed for 1,300 yards his rookie year. But certainly it is difficult to imagine the Chiefs without him right now, because so much of their running game identity, their short yardage success, their running the ball down near the goal line success has been down to what Kareem Hunt has given them. It's been a pretty remarkable second chance that he's taken and made the most of in Kansas City for sure.
Yeah, and then another guy here, DeAndre Hopkins, he's come up big in big situations. He had that 8-catch, 2-touchdown game versus the Bucks. He's got 2 other touchdowns. He had a 90-yard game versus the Rams. Like, these are guys that aren't meant to be they're not number ones anymore necessarily, but they're plug and play. And they traded him for him from the Titans for a conditional 2025 5th-round pick that would become a 4th if KC advanced to the Super Bowl and Hopkins were to play 60% of the snaps. Hopkins didn't play 60% of the snaps, so they're only trading the 5th-round pick.
He's only had 1 catch in the postseason, which is wild. And look, it is obvious. Like, when you watch him, like, his best football's past him. Like, there can be no question about that. But
had he not had that 8-catch, 2-touchdown game, they're not beating the Bucks.
Yeah, they needed that
That was an overtime game, I believe.
To win that game. Big touchdown and a 3-point win at Carolina.
Yeah.
A big touchdown and a 2-point win over the Chargers at home. Like, 4 touchdowns and adding just somebody else that Patrick Mahomes trusted. Because that was the biggest thing when you watched, like, before that trade, after the Rice injury and before DeAndre Hopkins came aboard, it just felt like Mahomes was dropping back and looking and scanning the field, and it was a bunch of guys he didn't trust. It was Travis Kelce being double teamed because that's what teams do, and then a whole bunch of other guys who couldn't get open or Mahomes didn't trust. And adding Hopkins as a guy with a little bit of gravity and all of that credibility from the great borderline Hall of Fame career that he's had. I don't know if he's going to the Hall of Fame, but he's going to have a case. 3-time first-team All-Pro. That might be a Hall of Famer, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. He had 3-time first-team All-Pro. He'll have as good a case as anybody in this era. To have added that guy just seemed to be the start of something that was able to bloom over time for the Chiefs passing game, where Mahomes wasn't dropping back and not trusting his pocket and not trusting his targets. That changed, and it began to change when DeAndre Hopkins came aboard.
Yeah, and a guy that was added right at the end of training camp, right at the end of August, after they knew how long Hollywood Brown was going to be out, and they put him on IR. They needed another reliable pass catcher. They went back to the well, and they signed Juju Smith-Schuster again. He's not 2018 Juju Smith-Schuster. He is a guy that can have a game for you when you need him, and they needed him. That, I believe it was a Monday night game versus the Saints.
That's right.
7 catches, 130 yards. He also had 2 touchdowns throughout the regular season. And then he had a few catches in the AFC title game. But Juju Smith-Schuster, not the guy who is the number 1 receiver, but a guy who Mahomes trusts.
And yes, the trust factor, huge. And also the knowledge of the offense, ability to work the middle of the field, and the trust of the quarterback, and the ability to understand that, hey, I am a diminished version of myself, and I've got to step back and play a role that's a little less glorious than my best years in Pittsburgh and even in 2022 with Kansas City. He's been very selfless. He's been a great teammate this year.
Another guy, Samaje P. Ryan. Obviously, I talked about the AFC title game ceiling catch. He's got 2 total touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 through the air, and he's a special teamer. I think he plays on special teams, but he's kind of like a glue guy, it appears, for this team. He doesn't play that much, but when he does, he makes an impact, and he made an impact in the AFC title game with the game ceiling catch, where, if I'm not mistaken, Andy Reid said they brought him in for that situation. Like, they brought him into the game at that time to be the guy to make that catch.
He's always been a good receiver out of the backfield, and it made so much sense to pick him up.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't make the Broncos.
The Broncos he would have been the Broncos' best running back. I'll tell you right now. He would have been their best running back. He's better than a cooked Javonte Williams. He's better than Jaleel McLaughlin. I think that's his name, Jaleel McLaughlin. For the Broncos, no doubt in my mind. They cut him, at the end of camp. And then, you're looking at a guy who had, 48 touches this year, 28 receptions and 20 carries. But he scored 2 touchdowns. His work as a pass-protecting running back. That was the thing. You remember all the way back in training camp, we were talking about, okay, it doesn't look like Jerick McKinnon's going to play football. Doesn't look like they're bringing him back.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to be able to play.
Yeah, so they are going to miss, and this is especially germane to what McKinnon brought. They're going to miss that guy on 3rd down who can line up next to Mahomes in the shotgun and eat a blitzing linebacker and just keep him off of Mahomes and let the play develop long enough for Mahomes to make something happen. They didn't have that guy on the roster. Carson Steele as a rookie, you didn't totally trust.
Yeah, you used an undrafted rookie.
Isaiah Pacheco as a pass protector, still very much a work in progress. They didn't have that guy, and then that guy just materialized on the waiver wire. And Brett Veach acted quickly, got him in, and that is what he has been. He has been reliable in what he has been asked to do, that fill-in-the-blank 3rd running back. Not as prolific statistically as McKinnon was in that role, but every bit as useful in the roles that don't show up in the stat sheet. And as you mentioned, he's been, I don't know that you'd call him a core special teamer because he's not playing on every special team snap, but he's been a return guy. He's been in on the kick returns. And, had the catch to seal the AFC Championship game. Not bad for a guy the Broncos didn't want, right?
Yeah. And then 2 other guys I want to mention here. They were brought in out of necessity at the time because Harrison Butker was hurt. Spencer Schrader. He had the game-winning field goal against the Panthers. And then Matthew Wright was pretty reliable as kickers that they needed to pick up midseason due to Harrison Butker's injury. But doesn't always work out. You're not going to bat 1,000 when you have midseason acquisitions. Cam Thomas and Joshua Uche, they were inactive like 99.9% of the season.
It's amazing that Joshua Uche can't get on the field.
Yeah.
Like, they ask you to do different things in the Chiefs defense, and they were asking him to do in the Patriots defense. And the things that you're asked to do in the Chiefs defense include playing the run a little bit. Like, that's why even as the sack totals and the athleticism diminished, Frank Clark was still a useful piece for the Chiefs because he can play the run. Josh Uche must be completely unable to do that. Otherwise, I can't imagine a guy who wins in the pass rush as often as he does wouldn't get on the field. But it must just be because, every time we put him on the field, they just run at him and run him off the field. That must be what the Chiefs see, what Steve Spagnuolo sees with him. But yes, being able to spackle over not big gaping holes, just little holes, little pinholes that might create bigger leaks somewhere else later on, that's how you keep a thing afloat throughout the 7 regular season and throughout a playoff run. And that's why Brett Veach maybe should have been the executive of the year this year. We'll take a timeout, come back. Quick preview of K-State and Oklahoma State basketball tonight on 580 Sports Talk. Coming up tonight, right when we're done, we're going to hand it off to the K-State Sports Network for pregame coverage of Wildcat basketball. Cats are back at Bramlage Coliseum tonight, taking on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. A 7 o'clock tip-off game televised on the CBS Sports Network. If you would like to hear the call from Wyatt Thompson and Stan Weber, it's right here on your home for the Wildcats, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. The Cats are trying to start a winning streak tonight, and a good opportunity to do it. I know Oklahoma State beat the brakes off of K-State in Stillwater earlier this month. I wouldn't put much stock in a repeat performance there. That was a night where Kansas State's vibes were just rancid, and Oklahoma State went on that freak 15-0 run to end the first half and just stomped K-State out from there. And K-State just took a rabbit punch and went to the deck and couldn't get up from the 10 count. Oklahoma State's still quite bad. They are the only team. No, check that. There are two teams from the Big 12 ranked worse than Kansas State in the KenPom numbers. K-State currently 93rd in the KenPom, 81st in the Torvik. They rank a little better over there. But Colorado is 100th. Colorado's still winless in the Big 12, by the way. Lost to Arizona State at home last night. Oklahoma State 108th in the KenPom. So this is a game that the analytics would suggest that Kansas State has an advantage. Torvik's numbers have them a 7.5-point favorite. That's what they are right now at Prairie Band Casino and Resort at the Prairie Band Sportsbook up in Mayetta. This should be a win for the version of Kansas State that we've seen really since that trip to Stillwater. The last 4 times out, K-State's played some pretty good basketball. And they haven't won every one of those games. They should have won the Tech game. That one's going to gnaw at them probably for the rest of the year. But other than the first 4 minutes, they played well at KU, and they largely played well at Baylor. Ran out of steam in that one because Baylor had BJ Edgecombe and K-State didn't. But K-State's coming off of a win. You can see that they're gaining confidence. I think they should win tonight, but I also wonder if I'm oversimplifying things when I say that as long as Doug McDaniel plays well, K-State can win. And if he doesn't, look out. Because the best K-State performances this year have been attached to the best Doug McDaniel performances. Not even just game by game. You go half by half. Like, he was really good in the first half against Baylor, and K-State led by 10. He was a little bit more anonymous in the second half, and Baylor ended up running away and winning that game. If Doug McDaniel's good for 40 minutes, and if Oklahoma State doesn't have a freak shooting night, I would expect Kansas State to be able to control this game. They've got better players. They've got more confidence. And I think that they've got a sense of who they are now as a team that should allow them to beat teams that they should beat. That's a litmus test of whether or not things are really starting to turn. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, you played well against a team that you're not better than in a tough road environment, and you got beat. Like, that's what happened to him at KU, right? And you can say, well, yeah, that's nice that they put forth a good effort. You know, if you're into moral victories, you could have given them one for how they fought and stayed in that game for as long as they did and made it competitive at the end after the rough start. It's one thing to say that, oh, yeah, well, you got up for a big game against a team that was ranked on the road. You knew it was going to be tough. You were focused. You were locked in. That's one thing. Show me you can be focused and tough and locked in at home against, by the numbers, the worst team in the Big 12. That's the next step for this K-State team. Show me you can be serious for 40 minutes against a team you should beat, because they didn't do that when they went to Stillwater. They didn't do that when they went to Fort Worth, and they should have beaten TCU and didn't. They have started doing that more often. They did that against West Virginia on Saturday, but West Virginia had a number in front of their team name coming into that game. Again, it's easy to lock in when you feel like you're the underdog. Can you lock in when you're the favorite and play like it? That's what I want to see from K-State tonight. Again, pregame coverage starts in about 7 minutes, and the tip-off just after 7 o'clock at Bramlage Coliseum. Catch it right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. One final timeout for us. We'll come back with the final word to wrap up 580 Sports Talk. Before we get to the final word, some breaking Royals news in the last couple of minutes. The Royals have reportedly signed right-handed reliever Carlos Estevez to a free agent contract, a personal favorite of mine from his 6 years as a Colorado Rocky. Estevez is 32 years old, coming off the best season of his career, which he split with the Angels and the Phillies. He was an all-star in 2023 with the Angels when he saved 31 games, saved 26 games between the Angels and the Phillies last season. I don't know that he slots in as the Royals closer. I think that's still going to be Lucas Erceg, but another arm with closing experience will give Matt Quatraro a chance to be flexible with Erceg and maybe flexible in the ninth inning. Let's not talk about what happened the last time Carlos Estevez threw a pitch on television.
That's how I realized who he was.
Yeah, let's just say Francisco Lindor hit it a really long way.
Yep.
That was unfortunate. But I like Carlos Estevez. Fun fact about Carlos Estevez, his nickname is Wild Thing because Charlie Sheen's birth name is Carlos Estevez.
I knew that.
So he has the same name
Yeah.
as the actor Charlie Sheen. So naturally, Charlie Sheen played Rick Wild Thing Vaughn in Major League. So Carlos Estevez is Wild Thing.
Crazy.
Yeah. I'm excited. I think I think he's going to help the team. I think that he will add to the relief depth. It also gives the Royals maybe more impetus to try Chris Bubich as a starter.
Yeah.
Because now you've got another high leverage relief arm. They were a little lefty heavy in the pen, so this gives them another right-handed
I mean, I think
arm.
this is good for like the elongation of the season, right? Like Lucas Erceg isn't going to be able to get every save opportunity,
Right.
but now you have a guy who reliably did it.
Yes, you have a guy who has done it. So yeah, that's my final word. Carlos Estevez is a Royal, and I think that's great. Spencer, final word.
Quickly, my final word here is we talked about it 2 segments ago. Just because this guy's not on your team, just because your team has this 53-man roster at the start of the season, doesn't mean that guys aren't going to impact the team that weren't on your roster at the end of August.
That is a fact. And the Chiefs, they're not just great because they have great players, great coaches. They're great because they don't have a lot of weaknesses. And even the smallest weaknesses, they're able to address as the season goes on. That's going to do it for us. K-State basketball coming up next. Watch for Basketball Coaches Show 6 to 7 over on Country 106.9. We're back tomorrow from 3 to 6. For Brendan and Spencer, I'm Dan. Good night.